Chapter 692. God Descending from Heaven to Subdue. 8. In the blink of an eye, Grandmaster Rong Yuan had already arrived in front of him. Don't know how Grandmaster made his move. One could only see him slam the top of Li Aoqiong's head 3 times. Li Aoqiong could only feel his brain burst with throbbing pain, so painful that he nearly lost consciousness. Afterwards, the back of Li Aoqiong's head started to give off a green smoke. Grandmaster Rong Yuan. Li Aoqiong was so anxious that he nearly went mad. Grandmaster Rong Yuan actually knew how to release spirit energy. Moreover, he was releasing Li Aoqiong's own spirit energy. With great difficulty, he had been smashed into the 9th rank by Su Luo, that loathsome girl. Now, Grandmaster Rong Yuan actually was releasing his spirit energy until his rank dropped. How could this be possible? Great Master, are you not afraid that the Jade Lakesley family will retaliate? Li Aoqiong saw Grandmaster Rong Yuan still standing in his original spot, calm as the wind, and he was so anxious that he burned with rage. Bei Chening, Lan Xian and them exchanged a glance, a thread of elation flashing through their hearts. This kind of karmic retribution came really fast. Li Aoqiong, at the summit of 7th rank, directly flew to the 9th rank. However, he just had a taste of an expert at the 9th rank. Then, the spirit energy in his body was released, lowering his rank. However, what was really a pity was that the released spirit energy had been polluted with Li Aoqiong's body's breath, so other people could not absorb it to use. Seeing that stream of green-colored energy leaving and dissipating everywhere, a regretful expression was in everyone's eyes. However, at this moment, a little black shadow flew out of Su Luo's embrace. With the speed of lightning, he flew towards Li Aoqiong. Li Aoqiong jumped from being scared. When he could see clearly again, he discovered it was that little puppy that was identified as a little divine dragon. Now, Li Aoqiong had been fixed in place. His entire body was rigid, so he had no way to cast aside the little divine dragon. Get lost, get lost. Seeing this little thing going in and out around his body, Li Aoqiong was so stressed out that his face nearly started to burst with flames from rage. Pooh! Just when Li Aoqiong opened his mouth to speak, the little divine dragon aimed directly at his mouth and shot in mouth after mouth of water. Oh, Li Aoqiong was so nauseated by this that he nearly cried. The little divine dragon searched for a while before finding the place where the spirit energy gathered. He aimed directly at where Li Aoqiong was giving off the green-colored spirit energy and sucked it all in. Grandmaster Rong Yuan quickly asked him to stop. Quickly. Li Aoqiong was so anxious that he started to shout loudly. He could feel that the drop in spirit energy in his body had accelerated. It was quickly getting close to a degree that he couldn't control entirely. If it was all sucked away by the little divine dragon, wouldn't he become a useless person? However, Grandmaster Rong Yuan merely waved his sleeves, saying with certainty, "Just now, you almost strangled him, then consider this compensating him." Since Grandmaster Rong Yuan had already said it, then it was not allowed to be altered. But, if it continues like this, then I will become a useless person. Li Aoqiong was infuriated to the point of arguing loudly. A useless person is always better than a dead person. Grandmaster Rong Yuan unsympathetically glanced at him. Then, with his hands at his back, he stood aside. Li Aoqiong was so infuriated that he nearly vomited out blood. He knew, if this was really a little divine dragon, then based on his conduct a moment ago, destroying his ability to cultivate would still be considered a light punishment. But Great Master, this clearly is a puppy. Where did you see that this is a little divine dragon? Why won't Grandmaster Rong Yuan let him go? His spirit energy was almost completely gone from being released. As if to corroborate Li Aoqiong's words. Having absorbed Li Aoqiong's spirit energy, now, the little divine dragon started to change. One could only see streams of mist condense into ball shape, wrapping his little body inside it. After the time it seemingly took to drink a cup of tea had passed, this round ball of mists and clouds flashed with a terrifying angry aura, a kind of strong deterrence force that gave a person feelings of reverence and fright. Now, everyone was nervously staring at that round ball of cloud and mist. Su Luo's expression was even more serious and grave. Not long after, the clouds and mists slowly dispersed. An entirely pink-colored little divine dragon appeared in front of everyone. Chapter 693, God Descending from Heaven to Subdue. 9. The little divine dragon opened his eyes. The first one he saw happened to be Liaoqiang. Seeing him, he immediately recalled the things he did to Little Master. An expression of wanting to vent his anger flashed through the little divine dragon's eyes. He lifted his paw and with a pow sound, smashed it towards Liaoqiang's forehead. The sharp claws not only scratched up Liaoqiang's face, even more, it slapped his body until it flipped over heavily in place. Su Luo was so startled that her chin nearly hit the floor. Before, the little divine dragon had just entered the 6th rank. Now, all of a sudden, he could make Liaoqiang flip over from a hit. What level was this? But, when she looked at Liaoqiang again, Su Luo understood completely. Currently, Liaoqiang had a large part of his spirit energy released by Grandmaster Rong Yun. In fact, his strength was already less than 4th rank. From a grand and majestic 9th rank falling until 4th rank, it felt no different than falling from heaven and into hell. Seeing him appearing in such a difficult situation, the stifled emotions Su Luo felt before from being chased and killed lessened a little. Once again, she saw that the little divine dragon's strength had suddenly gotten stronger, and that last bit of sullenness changed into excitement. Su Luo happily hugged the little divine dragon, tapping his little head. Hey, changed back to your original formo, now, how strong are you? Master, I'm already 7th rank. The little divine dragon's voice, carrying a touch of being pleased with himself, echoed in Su Luo's mind. You are more accomplished when compared to your family's master. Su Luo patted his little head. If they were to really compare, Su Luo was filled with all kinds of envy and jealousy. So the saying goes, reincarnating was also a skill. Luck should be considered a part of that strength. Because of the natural superiority of the gifted dragon race, the little divine dragon completely did not need to cultivate. What he ought to eat, drink, and sleep, he does. After that, he could still absorb a villain's spirit energy and make it his own to use. Not being careful, and he directly flew to the 7th rank. She, in contrast, was being chased to be killed everywhere. Time after time, she had to take great risks. After suffering untold hardship and efforts, today she had only reached the 5th rank. This comparison would result in a handful of miserable tears. The little divine dragon had no idea of his master's thoughts. He just stuck out his little butt, standing in Su Luo's embrace. His moist little pink tongue was licking her red swollen neck. After being licked by the little divine dragon, Su Luo had a clear, cool, and refreshing feeling. When she touched it again, that red swollen mark had unexpectedly completely disappeared. As for Liaoqiang, his entire face was bloody, staggering along. He crawled up. With only one glance, he saw the little divine dragon in Su Luo's embrace that had a perplexed and adorable expression. It really was a little divine dragon and not a puppy. The finger Liaoqiang used to point at the little divine dragon trembled non-stop. His face was full of shock. Just seeing him, the little divine dragon was annoyed. Consequently, not waiting for Su Luo to make a move, the little divine dragon leaped out of her embrace and took aim at Liaoqiang's chest. Slap, 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 continuously slamming him 6 times with his fists. Each of the hit was capable of smashing him into spitting out blood. The little divine dragon's type of behavior was clearly learned from Grandmaster Rong Yun's actions before. Now, Grandmaster Rong Yun was looking at the little divine dragon. That pair of always coldly indifferent eyes flashed with a trace of warmth. His hands beckoned towards the little divine dragon. The little divine dragon slanted his head, sizing him up for a moment. Maybe he felt the spirit energy on his body was pure and comfortable. Therefore, the little divine dragon hesitated for a second before letting go of his little legs and hopped onto his body. Grandmaster Rong Yun's mood seemed to be pretty good. The Grandmaster Rong Yun, who was always not lax with his words or smile, unexpectedly, a shallow of an arc formed at the corner of his mouth. Even though in a flash it passed, but this was also enough to shock everyone present. Almost everyone was guessing. What kind of relationship did Grandmaster Rong Yuan have with the little divine dragon? Bei Qining was even more envious as he slapped Su Luo's shoulder. The hard times are over, with the good times just beginning. Lan Xian also slapped Su Luo's other shoulder. Finally watched until the clouds had parted, and we can see the light of the moon. Anya Ming pursed his lips and smiled. Congratulations, congratulations. What is the congratulations for? Su Luo still hadn't realized it yet. Chapter 694, The Grievingly Family, 1. Bei Qinying's pair of clear and monochrome eyes were huge and had a lively expression. In high spirits, he watched Su Luo with a smile on his face. Grandmaster Rong Yun's conduct is normally cold and indifferent. Usually, seeing someone dying, he won't save them. But this time, he actually saved you. Don't tell me this isn't a matter to celebrate? Anya Ming smilingly added. This time, Grandmaster Rong Yun made a move to save you. In other people's eyes, Grandmaster Rong Yun would seem like your backer. In the future, no one in the imperial capital would dare to provoke you. Su Luo tossed her skeptical gaze onto Grandmaster Rong Yun's body. And at this moment, Grandmaster Rong Yun's gaze just so happened to sweep by her body. When their gazes collided, Grandmaster Rong Yun's gaze was as tranquil as water, without a ripple nor a swell. It was as if in his eyes, Su Luo was merely a wooden stake. Su Luo had no choice but to concede. This time, the reason why Grandmaster Rong Yun would save her was all based on giving the little divine dragon some face. If it was not for the little divine dragon, very likely, even if Grandmaster Rong Yun had seen it, he would have still left indifferently. Thinking of this, the gaze Su Luo used to look at the little divine dragon became increasingly gentle and kind. Just at this quiet moment, suddenly, small ripples and fluctuations appeared in the atmosphere. Li Yaoxiang's figure slowly appeared before everyone's eyes. When he appeared at first glance, he saw Li Yaoxiang who had fallen to the ground, appearing battered and exhausted. Seeing Li Yaoxiang's this kind of appearance, Li Yaoxiang's face pursed tightly, his complexion hazed over. Second uncle. Li Yaoxiang covered his chest and could not help but cough. Today, with regards to Li Yaoxiang, was truly a complicated day. First was the coincidental chance to be promoted to 9th rank. Just at the most ecstatic moment of his life, he was lowered to the 4th rank by Grandmaster Rong Yun, falling into a quagmire. In the course of these events, he had to endure being beaten up time and time again. If it was not for the fact that Li Yaoxiang's body was basically strong enough, right now, he would already have become a pile of mincemeat. Where would he still have the time to complain to Li Yaoxiang? Second uncle, save me. Cough, cough, cough. The seriously injured Li Yaoxiang saw his own relative. He couldn't breathe and gave burst after burst of violent coughs. What is going on? Who had injured you like this? Li Yaoxiang was infuriated till the point he nearly went mad. When he and Beichen family's damned old man was fighting, he had paid attention to this treasured nephew. That was from 7th rank and directly whirled to the 9th rank. But now, he was only at a lowly 4th rank, weaker than Su Luo, that loathsome girl. How was this okay? Grandmaster Rong Yun cast him an indifferent glance, and with a gentle tone of voice that was full of a cold, murderous aura. Me? Li Yaoxiang turned around. In the split second, he saw Grandmaster Rong Yun. His entire body trembled slightly. Rong. Grandmaster Rong Yun? Grandmaster Rong Yun, as an honored senior and noble character, came to Eastern Ling Empire and still interfered in the fight among the younger generations? Grandmaster Rong Yun's expression was indifferent. The Jade Lakes Li family tried to cause a war between humans and the dragon race. Go back and ask Li Kanglin what is the meaning of this? Li Kanglin was the name of Li family's elder. Normally, people would call him Saint or Honored Sir. Nearly almost everyone had forgotten his original name. Having heard what was said, Li Yaoxiang's entire body jolted to a stop. Cause human and dragon race conflict? This accusation was too great. How could Li family bear such an accusation? Seeing Li Yaoxiang, who had fallen to the ground and now changed into 4th rank, a touch of pain flashed through Li Yaoxiang's eyes. Whether Li Yaoyan was dead or alive was still undetermined. Now, Li Yaoxiang had changed into this kind of appearance. Originally, He was already at 9th rank. Now, he was turned into 4th rank. Moreover, in the future, it would be more difficult for him to cultivate higher. Thinking of this, a burning rage started to spread from Li Yaoxiang's chest. His sinister and very cruel gaze ruthlessly glared at Su Luo. That fierceness burst out from his gaze, wishing he could choke Su Luo to death on the spot. Chapter 695. The Grievingly Family, 2. Su Luo, without showing any weakness, welcomed his gaze, the corner of her mouth hooking into a cynical and mocking smile. Blaming her? This they cannot blame her for. Li Yaoxiang's hands were clenched into fists at his side, making cracking sounds. Grandmaster Rong Yun is only protecting that little divine dragon, right? Li Yaoxiang bit down on his back teeth, asking while stressing each syllable. He could not do anything to Grandmaster Rong Yun, but don't tell him that he couldn't do anything to a lowly little loathsome girl. Unexpectedly, before Grandmaster Rong Yun could open his mouth, the little divine dragon had already flown out of Su Luo's embrace. Like a launched rocket, he rushed towards Li Yaoxiang. Frankly speaking, the little divine dragon right now was like the great General Lu Ming, a model of self-improvement. Before, the little divine dragon was already promoted 1 level. In addition, he had absorbed Li Yaoxiang's spirit energy and was again promoted a level. Now, he was already at the 7th rank. Again, on top of the fact that magical beasts were generally somewhat stronger than humans, therefore, even faced with the 8th rank Li Yaoxiang, he also wouldn't be standing downwind. The little divine dragon's speed was extremely fast. Like lightning, he leaped out. All of a sudden, he had bitten Li Yaoxiang's trouser leg. With a whoosh sound, he directly bore into his pants. Puffed! Seeing this comical scene, Bei Chen couldn't help but utter a sound of laughter. Lan Xian and other people of the group, with arms around each other's shoulders, stood in a circle. Every one of them started to laugh heartily. Su Luo also watched the spectacle in front of her eyes with a face full of interest. She believed that having been promoted 2 levels in a row, now, with the little divine dragon already restored to his original form, was absolutely not something Li Yaoxiang could grab. As Su Luo expected, the little divine dragon was extremely nimble. The little divine dragon was originally a small round ball. His speed after running into Li Yaoxiang's trouser leg still did not slow down. He followed along the gaps and got into everywhere. How could Li Yaoxiang have anticipated that the little divine dragon, who originally would have collapsed at the first blow in front of him, would become this strong in the blink of an eye? In a moment of distraction, he grabbed at empty air where the little divine dragon was, but wanting to capture him again was going to be more difficult. Seeing the little divine dragon drilling everywhere in his trousers, and no matter what, he couldn't capture it, Li Yaoxiang was so mad that his face turned red. Under so many eyes, he, as the stately second master of the Jade Lake's palace, was made fun of and put into an awkward position. How could you ask him to endure it? Go die. He slapped ruthlessly towards the little divine dragon on his thigh. However, in the end, he still underestimated the little divine dragon's speed. It was to the extent that after one palm strike slapped down, the little thing had already vanished long ago, whereas Li Yaoxiang's slap, which contained formidable spirit energy, struck his own thigh. Even he, as an 8th-ranked expert, could not bear it and had to suck in a cold breath of air. Because it was really painful, he nearly slapped his own bones until they rent apart. The rage in Li Yaoxiang's eyes was already at the border of a sudden explosion. As for the little divine dragon now, where was he? He was at the place with Li Yaoxiang's root, not far from the thigh area. The little divine dragon was furious that Li Yaoxiang would bully his own little master. As a result, he aimed at the softest and weakest spot on Li Yaoxiang's body and directly bit down. However, after this bite directly descended, the little divine dragon's little head slanted to the side, a perplexed and puzzled expression appearing in his eyes. Why is it empty? During the time when the little divine dragon was staring blankly, Li Yaoxiang hardened his heart and directly slapped towards his own crotch. It would absolutely hit its target. Just now, the lesson he learned had just passed. Li Yaoxiang was afraid. Therefore, he didn't dare. Now, From the outside, it seemed the little divine dragon's little round body was standing in that place of his. It seemed very comical with that bulge. Li Yaoxiang was anxious as well as furious, and he also dared not use his strength to slap there. Consequently, he could only reach out his hands to make a grab. But just when his hands were about to touch this round little thing, a scene that astonished everyone occurred. Because he sensed danger approaching, the little divine dragon panicked and randomly selected a path that actually ripped apart the clothing covering Li Yaoxiang's private part. His little body shot out and directly jumped on top of his head. Chapter 696, The Grievingly Family, 3. SSS. Everyone present at the scene all inhaled a deep breath of cold air. Bei Qining showed his approval even more by giving the little divine dragon a thumbs up. Never thought that this little thing was this capable, to actually directly rip apart the pants of the second master of the Jade Lake's palace. In such a public place with numerous people, Li Yaoxiang's pants were fine everywhere else. Only that place was missing a small piece of cloth. Li Yaoxiang subconsciously had both hands covering that place. His expression had a touch of panic and embarrassment. In this way, his action was even more conspicuous and comically funny. When everyone saw this, without exception, all of them started to laugh uproariously. Li Yaoxiang originally wanted to angrily rebuke them, but the heavens did not want to help him. Because the little divine dragon's playful nature appeared again, and actually stepped on his head again and again. In the beginning, he was still taking strides to walk, but afterwards, he felt the difficulty was too low. So, he went as far as to play a game by himself of jumping really high and again dropping down from very high. Every time he smashed down, Li Yaoxiang felt a violent jolt on his forehead. Li Yaoxiang, in a stern voice, cursed at Su Luo. Loathsome girl, quickly grab this little dragon away. Otherwise, this elder will be impolite to it. Li Yaoxiang's hateful words were said with a severe tone, but lacked sufficient confidence. Because he could not do anything about the little divine dragon, then, how could he even threaten Su Luo? He just hoped that Su Luo would not be that smart, but his hope was doomed to come to nothing. Su Luo was smiling happily as she looked at him. Not treating him politely? Then, you should by all means not be polite. The little divine dragon's strength was already very different now. With regards to a real fight, he would not win against Li Yaoxiang. But, when comparing speed and quickness, then, Li Yaoxiang would be defeated. Therefore, Su Luo was extremely certain Li Yaoxiang basically could not deal with the little divine dragon. If he was able to deal with the little divine dragon, then, he wouldn't shout at Su Luo. Rather, he would directly make his move. Li Yaoxiang's face was patches of red, so furious that he nearly passed out. This hateful thing, he will kill it if it's the last thing he does. Just when the little divine dragon was about to drop down from up high onto his forehead, he started to condense his spirit energy and grab towards the little divine dragon's position. He believed with his entire heart that this time, even if he didn't capture the little divine dragon, he would at least pull off some of his scales. However, his luck was just not that good. He could have grabbed for wherever, but he actually stuck his hand towards the little divine dragon's mouth. It must be said that the little divine dragon's claws and teeth were sharper than any weapons made of mysterious iron. Ah! Li Yaoxiang, with bad luck, that finger was directly bitten off by the little divine dragon. The little divine dragon was disdainful that it didn't smell good. Pooh sound, that finger was spit onto his body. Li Yaoxiang was simply about to go mad. He unconsciously reached out with his other hand to grab at the little divine dragon. Now, his reasoning was already covered over by rage. Consequently, when his hand released where it was covering his crotch, many people at the scene all gave a shriek. Among them, Bei Qinying's reaction was the most adorable. In the split second, when he saw the truth, both of his hands covered his mouth. He raised his voice, loud and clear. Using a shouting tone, he madly yelled, eunuch! The second master of the Jade Lake's palace is actually an eunuch. Lan Xian could not stand it any longer. He started to laugh with beefed sounds. He pulled at Bei Qinying's sleeves. Lighten it a bit, you overreacted. Then you do it. Bei Qining disdainfully handed over this heavy responsibility to Lan Xian. Lan Xian raised his chin, having an expression that said, "You watch this." One could only see Lan Xian's hand, forming a horn shape around his mouth. He shouted towards Li Yaoxiang, full of concern, "Uncle Li, your family's little man was bitten off by a puppy and fell to the ground." As a result, everyone's gaze, with a swishing sound, simultaneously looked towards that bloody and badly mangled finger that the little divine dragon had bitten off. Chapter 697. The Grieving Li Family, 4. So small, An Ye Ming muttered. Even though it was a mutter, the volume was loud enough for Li Yaoxiang to hear. The little divine dragon sat on Li Yaoxiang's head that was like a chicken's nest. Two small claws grabbed onto that head, which was as disorderly as weeds. Two clear and limp pair of large eyes, with a perplexed and innocent expression, watched these people who were slapping their thighs, howling with laughter and shouting wildly. He completely did not understand the mishap he had made. The human world was really complicated. He does not understand. The little divine dragon pursed his small mouth. That listlessly small appearance was simply too adorable. At this time, Li Yaoxiang had already gone mad with anger. Being made fun of by the little divine dragon in front of the younger generation, he was already on the verge of suddenly exploding. Combined with what the little divine dragon did, made him expose a secret he had kept hidden for countless years in front of everyone. In order to hide this secret, he even took a wife to cover it up. But now, everything was ruined. This put him in one of those crazily insane moods. Li Yaoxiang was so mad that he began wildly grabbing at his own head. Since it had already been exposed, he just let it all go. He did not need to care about there being nothing there anymore. Li Yaoxiang simply went mad. His hands were wildly grabbing at his head, but what's the use? It's not as if the little divine dragon was a statue, standing there and letting him grab. Way before he had started doing that, the nimble little thing had already drifted down to his back. But being in a state of madness, Li Yaoxiang was completely unaware. He was only seen to continuously grab at his own head. One grab was a bundle of hair. Even the skin with the hair was pulled down. Clumps of bloody flesh and black hair. The sight seemed eerie and frightening. The smile in Su Luo's and others' eyes gradually froze. Their expression seemed to become somewhat grave. A bellow exploded from Li Yaoxiang's mouth. The entire heaven and earth shook for a moment. Li Yaoxiang suddenly became quiet. His lowered eyes suddenly bubbled up and exploded with red rays of rage shooting towards Su Luo. He was seen heading towards Su Luo one step at a time, walking there slowly. His whole body appeared murderous, inciting fear in the hearts of people. Just at this moment, the little divine dragon's sharp claws clenched into a fist as he heavily smashed down on Li Yaoxiang's head. The red glow in Li Yaoxiang's eyes gradually waned. His eyes assumed the shape of a hypnotic spiral, slowly falling to the ground. Su Luo resolutely wiped away the sweat on her forehead. The Li Yaoxiang in a crazy state was simply too terrifying. Fortunately, the little divine dragon attacked with a heavy fist at the last moment. After knocking Li Yaoxiang out, the little divine dragon flew towards Su Luo in high spirits with his little face slanted up pridefully. Awoo, awoo. The little divine dragon patted his chest, showing he did well and seeking praise from the little master. My family's little dragon is still the greatest. Su Luo smiled from ear to ear as she rubbed his head. The little divine dragon loved this kind of spoiling and pampering move by Su Luo the most. His two little claws grabbed onto the hem of her clothes and shyly buried his head in her bosom, digging around with his nose. Su Luo could not help but let out a laugh. The little divine dragon had a strength comparable to Li Xiaoyang, but with such a shy appearance, who would believe it if this was said out loud? Don't know when he would finally grow up. Bei Qining moved closer to Su Luo. That sunshine-filled, handsome face was full of smiles. His two canine teeth were shining brightly. Sister-in-law, you're really quite something. You can even raise a puppy into a little dragon. Lan Xian also moved in closer, his pair of eyes releasing beams of light. Where did you catch it? Is there more? Bring us to go catch one as well, even though Anya Ming did not say anything. But his naked gaze also expressed a feeling of ardent hope and expectation. Without waiting for Su Luo to answer, Bei Qining already slapped Lan Xian on the head. This is a dragon, not a dog. Is it something that you can just casually pick up as you please? 1. Hypnotic spiral. The Chinese is translate into mosquito incense coil, which the Chinese lit to get rid of mosquitoes. The incense is in the shape of a hypnotic spiral, so I just used the more common English name for the shape in case people haven't seen the Chinese mosquito incense. So if you see hypnotic spiral, then the Chinese is mosquito incense coil. Chapter 698, The Grievingly Family, 5. After he had finished speaking, Bei Qining smiled flatteringly at Su Luo. Sister-in-law, can you let me hold him for a while? Those adorable huge eyes that were bright and intelligent, too cute, too adorable. However, without waiting for Bei Qining's hand to get closer to the little divine dragon, the little divine dragon had already turned his body around. He presented his but to face Bei Qining, while his little head dug into Su Luo's bosom, thus expressing his disdain for Bei Qining. Lan Xian, with a puff, burst out in loud laughter. A person whose moral standing is too poor, move away. Watch me. However, before Lan Xian's body could get close, he was already swept away by the little divine dragon's tail. Deng deng deng. Lan Xian, who was completely unguarded against it, took a few steps back in succession. In the end, his butt ended up sitting on the ground. Hey, this small thing. Its temper really isn't that small. Lan Xian patted his, but as he stood back up, he pointed his finger at the little divine dragon, while shouting his grievances and dissatisfaction. Su Luo shot an unhappy glance at them. The little divine dragon is timid. Wait for him to get more familiar with you, then he'll be fine. Normally so shy, yet in a battle, he would advance bravely. Normal days, he looked like an ornamental and spoiled pet. When it was time to battle, he was a fighting spirit pet. It really was one move with two gains. There was nothing more suitable than this. Grandmaster Rong Yun has disappeared? Bei Qining was the first to realize this situation. Anya Ming laughed bitterly as he rubbed his nose and then pointed at Li Yaoxiang. When he fainted, then Grandmaster Rong Yun left. Su Luo secretly guessed in her heart. Such an indecent thing, and Grandmaster Rong Yun had seen it from start to finish, but he only left when Li Yaoxiang fainted. Was it because when he saw Li Yaoxiang passed out, knowing he would not be a threat to the little divine dragon, therefore, he left feeling at ease? Looked like Grandmaster Rong Yun really cared for the little divine dragon. But, fortunately, he did not snatch the little divine dragon away from her hands. If he wanted to snatch the little divine dragon, it should be easy. Su Luo was basically powerless to stop him. Su Luo stroked the little divine dragon's head. Your family's master definitely saved the world in her past life. Otherwise, how is it that my luck is so good? Just so happens to pick up a little treasure like you. During leisure periods, the little divine dragon acted like an ornamental pet, cute and stupidly adorable. During battles, it can act like a fighting spirit pet, having incomparably valiant fighting strength. Moreover, the little divine dragon also had such a strong background that provided Su Luo with conveniences, time and time again. The little divine dragon looked at Su Luo perplexedly and innocently. He could not understand what was said. Su Luo and the others from the same group were leisurely, but the fury in Li Yaoxiang's eyes surged up even more because of this. However, in this situation where the enemy was strong and he was weak, he could only grin and bear it, shrinking the feeling of his own existence as much as possible. So he did not say a word, and even deliberately slowed down his own breathing. He made himself as thin as air, hoping Su Luo would ignore his existence. Elder Beichen was standing afar. At this time, he was stroking his few strands of goat beard. With a smile in his eyes, clearly, he was in a rather good mood. That's right, an old rival for many years. Now, to unexpectedly see him in such a shameful manner, how could he not be happy? A moment ago, Bei Qining and those children did not see clearly, but he saw it very clearly. Even though the little divine dragon's small fist had strength, it would not go as far as to knock out Li Yaoxiang, who was in a crazed state of mind. When the little divine dragon raised his small fist, Grandmaster Rong Yun's sleeve moved slightly. It was only after that did Li Yaoxiang pass out. Moreover, before Grandmaster Rong Yun left, that apathetic glance he threw over was clearly to warn him to keep silent. Elder Beichen couldn't help but let out a sigh. On this continent, how many strong experts had tried to get close to Grandmaster Rong Yun but could not? But right now, this little divine dragon made Grandmaster Rong Yun go as far as to protect him. Among these, what's the reason? That day, Su Luo and the group of people left voluntarily. Chapter 699. The Grieving Li Family, 6, Li Yaoqiang, who was pretending to be an ostrich, waited until after all of them had left. Only then did he return to the Li family's home in the imperial capital, while carrying Li Yaoxiang on his back. After he returned, Li Yaoqiang decided it was an important matter that must be kept secret and would not say a single word. Li Yaoxiang was even more eager to treat that day's matter as garbage to be expunged. Naturally, he would not bring it up again, even if they did not want to mention it, but others could not help it. How could Bai Qining and that group of lively children be capable of enduring the silence in order to keep this secret? After they returned, not only did they spread it, but they also helped to publicize the Li family's secret without restraint. The most important point was to publicize Li Yaoxiang's being completely empty in that place. For a period of time, almost the entire imperial capital had flared up. Li Yaoxiang, that was Jade Lake's Li family's second master, whose existence was so high up. Who would have imagined he was actually... Oh, heavens! Did you know? Jade Lake's Li family's second master is actually... Hey, I'll just only tell you. You better not tell anyone else. That's right, that's right. Did you know? Jade Lake's Li family's second master is actually... Hey, I'll just tell you alone. You must never tell it to anyone else. Unexpectedly, the man in the Jade Lake's Li family is an eunuch. I've heard that place really wasn't capable. Hey, I'll just tell you alone. Don't spread it around. Have you heard it yet? It's being said that the Jade Lake's Li family's next generation are not their biological children. They were adopted because that master is an eunuch and can't have kids. Hey, I'll just tell you alone. Don't spread it around. Hey, I'll just tell you alone. Don't spread it around. Everyone warned others not to talk about it, but they themselves had their own friends and family. How could this sort of world-shaking gossip be kept inside? If they did not talk about it, their whole body would feel uncomfortable. Hence, everyone all stated not to tell anyone else, yet they themselves would secretly tell others. This kind of gossip was like a rolling snowball. The more it rolled, the bigger it became. In less than an afternoon's effort, it was completely well known by everyone in the imperial capital, even the food market's expert, the raggedly clothed beggars, the unskilled laborers on the dock. The oldest being a 70-year-old elderly woman and the youngest was a 3-year-old child. Everyone knew the second master in the Jade Lake's Li family, Li Yaoxiang, was actually a damned eunuch. When the Jade Lake's Li family returned to their senses, they were already powerless to reverse this desperate situation. They were so furious, they nearly passed out. Flustered and exasperated, the Jade Lake's Li family went to find Emperor Jing and requested him to issue an imperial edict to deal with these gossipers. However, the always remote and aloof Jade Lake's Li family had quite clearly always used prestige to intimidate those beneath them. To deal with these sorts of gossiping matters, clearly in the area of public relations, it seemed they were rather incapable. They only knew how to use military force to suppress. However, this sort of gossip-like rumors and slanders, the more it was repressed, the more it would rebound. After all, the mouths were grown on the bodies of others. Emperor Jing also wanted to help, but he was also less than capable to deal with it, because fellow countrymen's love for gossip was rooted in their innate nature. How could this be changed by an imperial edict? The sages had already said it before. Rumors could only be stopped by a wise man. Forceful methods will not be able to stop it. Consequently, the more the imperial court tried to stop it, the crazier the populace's secret discussions on this became. First, it was spread around that Li Yaoxiang was a damn eunuch. After being passed around, it became Li Yaoxiang had an adulterous relationship with his sister-in-law. Consequently, he was castrated by Jade Lake's #1 master. Until later it emerged with the conclusion that Li Yaoxiang, Li Yaoyao, and so on, were not given birth by the Jade Lake's #1 master. The populace's craving for gossip was like a raging flame. Of course, among these, naturally, Bei Qining and friends could not be left out in adding fuel to the fire. Seeing a servant come holding the report about the latest rumor, Bei Qining covered his belly and rolled about on his bed. Chapter 700. The Grieving Li Family, 7. Ha ha ha. It hurts so much I could die. Quickly save me. Bei Qining laughed until even tears came out. You guys go quickly. Continue spreading it. This time, spread around about the Jade Lake's palace master's wife's lover. Watching the servants go after accepting his order, Bei Qining finished laughing and slowly wiped away the wet spot made by the tears. Only after Bei Qining took a few deep breaths did he calm down. That day, Li Yaoxiang chased them until they looked disheveled and downtrodden, especially Luo, who almost died by his hands. This sort of hatred, how could he not take revenge? The moment he thought of that day's scene where Su Luo's neck was being gripped so forcefully, a hint of malicious ruthlessness flashed across Bei Qining's usually sunshine-filled handsome face. Those rumors were completely planned and executed by Bei Qining and his group of people. Su Luo did not actually participate in it. When she woke up, she found that the rumors outside were already like this. However, the Jade Lake's palace wasn't entirely without countermeasures. At least, with the Jade Lake's fairy taking action, these rumors were suppressed very quickly. The news of Grandmaster Rong Yun arriving at the imperial capital was actually released by Li Yaoyao. At the same time of releasing this piece of news, she also spread around the matter of Grandmaster Rong Yun about to take Li Yaoyao as a disciple being the most important and high-profile point. Li Yaoyao was deeply well-versed in the weaknesses of gossiping rumors. Gossip rumors had a time of effectiveness, and if there was something that had even more explosive interest, then the previous rumor would be drowned out. So, when the news about Grandmaster Rong Yun wanting to accept Li Yaoyao as a disciple spread, the entire imperial capital was stunned. It was not just the entire imperial capital. Even the entire Eastern Ling and the entire continent's strong experts were all simultaneously stunned. Grandmaster Rong Yun, until now, only had Long Yin as his only disciple. If Jade Lake's fairy paid her respects to Grandmaster Rong Yun as a disciple, then Jade Lake's palace's ranking among the 10 largest aristocratic families would inevitably lean near the front once more. For a period of time, almost all eyes were focused on Eastern Ling Empire's imperial capital, taking note of every movement there. Rather, during these few days, the depressing atmosphere that the Jade Lake's Li family had a few days before became the total opposite. A lively and prosperous scene decorated with lanterns and colored banners. Jade Lake's Li family was in high energy, while inside the Su home, it was quiet. Inside the study, Su Zian was sitting upright at the side of the desk, his brows furrowed. He looked at the envelope in his hands. His complexion was suddenly dark and gloomy, clouded with uncertainty. In fact, this letter had already reached his hands a few days ago. At the time, the one who had delivered the letter was a Jade Lake's inner disciple. Their attitude had been just as arrogant and disdainful as before. However, at the time, after the letter was delivered, the imperial capital very quickly surged up with crazy rumors about Jade Lake's Li family's scandal. At the time, Su Zian could not help but rejoice in someone else's misfortune in his heart. So, he naturally shelved this letter into a corner. However, a millennium-old aristocratic family proved itself to be a millennium-old aristocratic family. Their inside information was deep, definitely not a family that could be taken down by something small-scale done once or twice. The moment Li Yaoyao pays respects to Grandmaster Rong Yun as his disciple, under this sky, who would dare to gossip indiscriminately about them? So, Su Zian, who began to feel even more pressure, pulled out the letter from the deepest parts of the drawer and brought it out once more. The content of this letter was very simple. There were only a few strokes, very simply, a single line. Have Su Luo banished from the Su Manor. Yes, it was just these simple 8 words. However, these 8 words landed Su Zian in a profoundly difficult situation. If it had been half a year ago, when this letter from the Jade Lakesley family had arrived without even being said, Su Zian would comply with the request. He wouldn't even be a little bit hesitant and sad about it. However, now, the situation was not so simple. Firstly, not even mentioning how in this past half a year, Su Luo, that smelly girl's, strength had advanced by leaps and bounds. Just speaking of her relationship with His Highness Prince Jean. Just this point alone, he could not bear to let her go. However, if he did not obey Jade Lakesley family, a hint of haze flashed across Su Zian's eyes. What to do? Just exactly what should he do that would be the best choice for him and for Su Manor? Su Zian sank into deep tangled thoughts. This day, Grandmaster Rong Yin complied with Emperor Jing's invitation for him to enter the palace. And astonishingly, accompanying by his side happened to be the Jade Lake's fairy. He even said that Su family's girl had unlimited potential. In the future, her accomplishments would not be worse than Li Yaoyao. Emperor Jing shook his head. That day, he really was conned by Second Child into actually believing his words. Now, looking at Grandmaster Rong Yun's attitude towards Li Yaoyao, even a fool could tell Li Yaoyao, like this, was about to fly up like a rocket. If Li Yaoyao was to be accepted by Grandmaster Rong Yun as his last disciple, then her status would be very precious. By that time, even if Second Child wanted to marry her, he might need to wait in line. Thinking up to now, Emperor Jing's desire to arrange the marriage of the Jade Lake's fairy to Nangong Luyun became increasingly stronger. In addition, it would be best to finalize the marriage before Li Yaoyao was taken in by Grandmaster Rong Yun as a disciple. Emperor Jing restrained the thoughts that were beginning to stir. He smiled at Grandmaster Rong Yun and said, "Great Master, it's rare for you to make a trip here. You should stay in Eastern Ling for a few more days." Grandmaster Rong Yun sipped his tea. His voice was cold. "After the matter of accepting a disciple is completed, then I will leave immediately." The corner of Emperor Jing's smile became slightly stiff. This Grandmaster Rong Yun really spoke bluntly. Even faced with the Emperor, he also had no sensitivity to the other's feelings. However, Emperor Jing only felt rather depressed and would not really get angry. Because, when one has reached Grandmaster Rong Yun's elevated status, then one had no need for worldly formalities. Being temperamental was the normal state for them. However, mentioning the matter of accepting a disciple, Emperor Jing could not help but feel his heart light up. He cast a glance at Li Yaoyao and asked while smiling, "This sure is a happy occasion. Don't know who Great Master has decided to take as a disciple?" Grandmaster Rong Yun shot a glance at him like he was looking at an idiot. His voice was indifferent, faintly discernible as wind. "Haven't completed." Emperor Jing clapped his hands and excitedly said, "If it's like this, then how about this Emperor have those apothecaries come for you to select?" Chapter 702. The matter of accepting a disciple. 2. The civil and military ministers under the steps made of precious jade suddenly looked at each other in dismay. His Majesty the Emperor was really devious. If this was given for him to announce, then naturally, the ones arriving will mostly be refining pharmacists from the court of Eastern Ling Empire. This was called not letting one's own water to flow into others' field. However, Grandmaster Rong Yun was not a fool either. How could he have agreed? Yet, Grandmaster Rong Yun's reaction was beyond their expectations. In contrast to the Emperor's excitement, Grandmaster Rong Yun's reaction was a lot colder. One could only see Grandmaster Rong Yun take a slight sip of tea. That pair of eyes as dark as a green pool was bright enough to see through the entire world's schemes. His expression was cold and indifferent as he said, "Just a meeting is fine." There wasn't even the slightest movement in the expression of the Jade Lake's fairy who was behind him. That's right, based on natural aptitude, strength, and background, who could beat Jade Lakesley family's little princess? Even if someone came before to be selected, they would just serve as cannon fodder. At this moment, Everyone was green with envy towards the Jade Lakes Fairy for being able to get Grandmaster Rong Yun's favor. However, the Emperor had another scheme inside his heart. Li Yaoyao being picked out by Grandmaster Rong Yun was also a good thing. However, if the court apothecaries under his control could also be accepted by Grandmaster Rong Yun into his school, it would be a double celebration. So, in regards to this matter, the Emperor's interest was rather strong. News of Grandmaster Rong Yun wanting to take a disciple spread from the throne room. It was as if this news had grown wings. In an instant, it had already spread throughout the whole imperial capital. On this day, Apothecary Long finally came out from the refining pills room. This time, after going into seclusion for half a month, his harvest was rather large. Just as he emerged from his seclusion, his steward told him the news in the throne room. Such a good opportunity. How could this be missed? Apothecary Long waved his arms about widely. Prepare a horse. To Su Manor. Hurry. Although he could also bring Su Luo to see his master in private, but how could it be compared to now in a perfectly justified way? Upon hearing this, the steward was about to command a servant to harness a horse. Yet unexpectedly, Apothecary Long caught up to him with a few quick steps. He immediately jumped onto the horse's back and left just like that. He left behind the steward and the coachman, looking at each other in dismay. Apothecary Long spurred the horse on, hurrying towards Su Manor. Today, Su Zian had just announced he was sick and stayed home. Ever since the incident that happened at Su Manor before, Su Zian had become more haggard, and the entire Su Manor had settled into silence. My lord, Apothecary Long has arrived. The steward saw Apothecary Long's horse from afar. Without waiting for him to draw near, the steward flew into a run. Su Zian was just sitting in the study, contemplating. Seeing that Apothecary Long was coming, he could not help but feel overjoyed at the news. Someone come, quickly come to welcome Apothecary Long. Also, quickly go and call the 5th Miss out here. Just say that Apothecary Long is here. Hurry up and go. Su Zian repeatedly commanded in haste. On his face was an expression of simply being overjoyed. Su Jingyu was still lying on the bed right now. The bones in his whole body were so soft, they had become a lump. He did not even have the strength to raise his arm. Madame Su was also this way. The gloomy and dismal Su Manor had become lively and bustling because of Apothecary Long's arrival. Apothecary Long abandoned the horse and charged into Su Manor. Before even waiting for him to stand still, Su Zian had already hurried forward to greet Apothecary Long. Su Zian had a flattering and ingratiating smile on his face. Apothecary Long, welcome, welcome. Please, come in quickly. Apothecary Long let out a snort. However, seeing as Su Zian was Su Luo's father, Apothecary Long reluctantly gave him some face. Lead the way. Although they had just taken their seats in the living room, a servant had already brought out cups of tea. Apothecary Long's forehead nodded slightly. Quickly, ask your daughter to please come out. Daughter? Su Zian's eyes suddenly lit up. He already said so. Apothecary Long seemed to have a very good impression of Su Shi. How could he really abandon Su Manor without any regard? Su Zian urgently instructed the servant. Hurry, hurry, hurry up and ask for the miss to please come out. Chapter 703. The Matter of Accepting a Disciple. 3. However, before the servants could leave, Su Shi, who was dressed up properly like a new person, appeared in the hall. Daddy, you called for me? Su Shi walked up and intimately wrapped her hands around Su Zian's arm. Sheer, come over to pay your respects to Apothecary Long. Just now, Apothecary Long was looking for you. Su Zian pulled Su Shi along to greet Apothecary Long. Sheer is very mischievous and not thoughtful. Could it be that Apothecary Long likes this? Su Zian said while smiling. Su Shi was pulled along by Su Zian and was just about to kneel in front of Apothecary Long. But Apothecary Long suddenly stood up. Su Zian, are you playing tricks on this apothecary? Apothecary Long was displeased as he glared at Su Zian. Su Zian was very puzzled. What was wrong with Apothecary Long? What did he do wrong? Why would this apothecary be fond of this girl? Where did this come from? You must explain it to this apothecary clearly. Apothecary Long's attitude was always eccentric and irascible. Towards people who were unpleasant to his eyes, he would never show mercy or give them face. Su Xian's expression was bewildered. Wasn't this what you, as an elder, had said yourself earlier? This elder had praised that Sheer was good with every word and forbade me from bullying her. Why was he going back on his words now? Su Xian's heart was extremely puzzled. However, he could not say it so bluntly with these words. As a result, he could only timidly say, "Elder, the person you wanted to see isn't Sheer?" What Sheer, Donger, one. This apothecary doesn't know any of them. Apothecary Long had his hands folded behind his back, then arrogantly and childishly turned his head away. The corner of Su Xian's mouth immediately had a suffering expression, but he also became more doubtful. In the end, where did it go wrong? When Su Shi heard Apothecary Long's words, she immediately became unhappy. What Sheer, Donger? Wasn't Apothecary Long treating her just like any stray cat or dog? How could he be so disrespectful to her? Su Shi scowled and coldly said, "Apothecary Long, how could you say it like that?" Su Xian hurriedly covered Su Shi's mouth. This loathsome girl had truly dared to say it. Who was Apothecary Long? He was an elite apothecary. Ever since Grandmaster Rong Yuan had arrived, everybody had found out Apothecary Long's other identity, which was Grandmaster Rong Yuan's first disciple. Su Shi, this girl, actually dared to contradict him. Did she not want to live? The corner of Apothecary Long's mouth had a taunting sneer. This is that whatever Sheer? TSK, TSK, TSK. How can this apothecary think highly of her? Su Xian, are your eyes decorations, or is your brain an ornament? SSSSS, the servants outside simultaneously sucked in a breath of cold air. Apothecary Long was truly egotistical and sharp. His poisonous tongue could cause a person's death. Their family's master was the great general that protects the nation. When was he ever pointed at and cursed in the face by others? Speaking of Su Xian right now, his heart was angry as well as furious. But he could only endure it silently as he squeezed out a rigid smile at the corner of his mouth. Then, if it is like this, Apothecary Long has identified the wrong person. Our Su Manor does not have the person you are looking for. Su Xian rigidly clenched his fists, proving that his anger inside was rolling over and over. Apothecary Long pointed at Su Xian with one hand, appearing to be very resentful of Su Xian for not meeting his expectations. This apothecary just knows that you do not have good eyesight, and especially reminded you of this. However, I never expected that it's not that you don't have eyesight, rather, you are totally blind. Apothecary Long, our Su Manor truly does not have. Su Xian also had a temper, and also, his temper was not good. But, in front of Apothecary Long, he could only continue to endure. Bullshit. Isn't Su Luo your daughter? Isn't she in your manor? You would dare to go so far as to lie in front of this apothecary's face. Su Xian, you have big guts. Apothecary Long glared at him. Su Luo? Su Xian suddenly became motionless as if struck by lightning. One, Sheer, Donger. This is a play on Su Shi's given name Shi, which in Chinese is pronounced the same as the word for west. Dong is the Chinese for east. So Apothecary Long is saying, what east child, west child? But, in truth, Su Xian actually believed it. But, in this world, besides Jade Lake's fairy's unparalleled beauty, who else could enter Grandmaster Rong Yun's eyes? Su Xian's words really represented most people's point of view. Who knew? Apothecary Long actually sneered twice, waved his hand, and, not saying anything else, only said, "Call out Su Luo, that girl. Opportunity only knocks once." At this moment, Su Xian still felt that it was too difficult to believe. Su Luo was able to get Apothecary Long's recognition. This already greatly exceeded his expectations and stupefied his entire person. Now, Apothecary Long went as far as to say that Su Luo, that girl, might replace the Jade Lakes fairy? If these words were to spread out, who would believe it? In any case, he didn't believe it. Su Zian repeatedly smiled bitterly. Apothecary Long, don't joke around. In any case, Su Zian could not believe it. Does it look as if this apothecary is joking with you? Apothecary Long rolled his eyes at him in annoyance. Speak less nonsense, quickly. I order you to call the person out. Under the repeated urging of Apothecary Long, Su Zian finally ordered someone to ask for Su Luo to come. Seeing Su Luo, the first words that came out from Su Zian's mouth was complaints. Luo Luo, why didn't you say that your relationship with Apothecary Long was so good? Chapter 705. The Matter of Accepting a Disciple, 5. He started to call her Luo Luo again? A mocking sneer flashed through Su Luo's eyes. However, her face remained calm and she pretended to be at a loss. Daddy, you never asked? Su Zian was choked off and immediately flew into a rage out of humiliation. Your mother and brother are already ill in that kind of condition. However, after seeing them like that, you never thought of asking for help from Apothecary Long? How could you be this heartless? The corner of Su Luo's mouth hooked into a shallow sneer. I am heartless? Then, can I ask Daddy what was the reason why they became like this? This is called you reap what you sow. The amount of salt that Daddy has eaten is more than the amount of rice that I have eaten. Naturally, you should understand. Su Luo was not even a bit polite to him. You this loathsome girl. Su Zian's heart was extremely angry. Actually, just now, when he heard Apothecary Long's words, he had great expectations for Su Luo. However, he didn't know why when he saw her. His anger would immediately rise upwards, to the extent that now, he was put in an awkward situation. Apothecary Long sent a ferocious glare at Su Zian. You dare to curse at my friend? You truly have guts. Su Zian, do you wish to die? Su Zian's eyes opened really wide. Apothecary Long, who always had an eccentric temperament, would actually stick up for Su Luo? Moreover, he actually disregarded his status and scolded him. Wasn't this too many facts being overturned? She was even more furious, secretly biting her gums. Why is this little slut's luck so good? First, she was protected by His Highness Prince Jean. Now that His Highness Prince Jean had left, there was Apothecary Long who stuck up for her. This was simply too maddening. Su Luo's indifferent gaze swept past their faces. Looks like Su Manor, this wolf's den. It's better that she avoided as soon as possible, so as not to find herself having more punishments to suffer through. Thinking this far, Su Luo smiled shallowly. Apothecary Long is already here. If father has something to say, then please say it to Apothecary Long yourself. Why drag me into it? However, Apothecary Long simply did not give Su Zian the chance to speak. He pulled Su Luo and turned around to immediately walk away. Little great aunt, time is already getting short. Why are you still paying attention to the messes of these people? Su Luo laughed. What matter could be so urgent? You have a big chance to become my junior apprentice sister. If you were delayed by these people, then it will be too late for regrets in this lifetime. After saying this, Apothecary Long completely ignored the roomful of people and pulled Su Luo to quickly leave. As a result, Su Zian could only stare helplessly as Apothecary Long took Su Luo away. Hate secretly filled Su Shi's heart. Chapter 706. The Matter of Accepting a Disciple, 6. Su Zian was just about to slap Su Shi again. However, incredibly, Su Shi had already covered the slap mark, turned and ran away. While she ran, she also cried. Her cries seemed as if she had been extremely wronged. Speaking of Su Luo's side, after Nangong Luyun left, he left his dragon-scaled horse for Su Luo to look after. At this moment, the dragon-scaled horse was waiting in front of the gate. Su Luo, with one jump up, sat on top of the high horse. As for Apothecary Long's excellent colt, who seemed mighty and majestic before, now, compared to the dragon-scaled horse, it didn't even dare to raise its hooves. one in front and another in the back. The two horses quickly arrived at the Imperial Palace. Inside the Imperial Palace, Grandmaster Rong Yun sat upright on the red sandalwood chair with an indifferent expression. Jade Lake's fairy cleverly waited upon him at one side, her expression pure and cold. However, her eyes would inadvertently flash with a self-satisfied smile. 7 people stood in front of Grandmaster Rong Yun. These 7 were court apothecaries that had been arranged earlier by Emperor Jing. As a result, they were available at any time. Grandmaster Rong Yun indifferently said a sentence. "Present the most recent medicinal pill you have refined." The Jade Lake's fairy delivered the tray collected with the pills to the table in front of Grandmaster Rong Yun. On the red tray, 7 bottles were arranged in order. These 7 apothecaries normally were also masters at strutting around. But now, in front of Grandmaster Rong Yun, each and every one of them was like mice that had seen a cat. They were holding their breaths with rapt attention and did not even dare to breathe loudly. At this moment, the throne room was quiet and soundless. Even the sound of heartbeats could be heard clearly. Emperor Jing stared at Grandmaster Rong Yun with a grave expression. His eyes did not even blink, afraid that he would miss a trace that showed his mood on his face. Master Rong Yun twirled the first bottle of medicine in his hands, opened the bottle and sniffed it briefly. His forehead wrinkled slightly and set the bottle aside. Afterwards, it was the second bottle, the third bottle. During this time, in the throne room, not a single sound could be heard. Those 7 apothecaries that were undergoing the examination were even more nervous, to the extent that they were on the verge of fainting. This opportunity, with regards to them, was the same as changing their entire lives. However, when Grandmaster Rong Yun's forehead wrinkled more and more tightly and his expression became more and more gloomy, their hearts also dropped to an all-time low. Sure enough, as Grandmaster Rong Yun finished examining the last bottle of medicine, he looked at Emperor Jing. The corner of his mouth raised into an indifferent smile. "There's no more?" At this moment, Emperor Jing's entire body became stiff. His complexion carried a trace of embarrassment. This is your Eastern Ling Empire's most outstanding apothecaries?" Grandmaster Rong Yun's eyebrows rose slightly. "Don't tell me. None of them are qualified?" Emperor Jing awkwardly asked. "Completely unqualified." Grandmaster Rong Yun shook his head. Emperor Jing's eyes flashed with a trace of disappointment. He should have already known that Grandmaster Rong Yun's conditions for accepting a disciple would certainly be extremely harsh. He could only blame his own heart for believing there to be a bit of luck. However, this way only proved the Jade Lake's fairy's strength even more. Able to be chosen by Grandmaster Rong Yun and be brought along at his side. In terms of refining drugs, what kind of attainments had she reached? The more Emperor Jing looked at the Jade Lake's fairy, the more satisfied he became. Look at that, in every aspect, she was perfectly matched with Second Child. Not a single part was mismatched. He decided, tomorrow, he would discuss the date with the Jade Lakesley family. After Nangong Luyun returned, then they would be married. At this moment, Emperor Jing, who was immersed in his own world, simply did not consider everything. If this matter was really set, then based on Nangong Liuyun's temper, wouldn't he directly tie up the old emperor and send him to the bridal chamber? Grandmaster Rong Yun cast an apathetic glance at Emperor Jing. With curiously coincidental timing, he said a sentence. "The quality of these apothecaries are much worse than Western Jin Empire's apothecaries." Hearing these words, Emperor Jing, who sat on the dragon throne, and the many civil and military ministers in the room, blushed with shame. Eastern Ling Empire and Western Jin Empire, in every aspect of strength, were almost the same. Their competition was even more intense, and neither would accept the other as better. Chapter 707. The Matter of Accepting a Disciple. 7. If it was some other person who said that Eastern Ling Empire could not compare to the Western Jin Empire, these civil and military ministers would definitely beat him with shoes or wooden planks. But the one who said it was Grandmaster Rong Yun, then this was a fact. The Eastern Ling Empire's civil and military ministers' hearts were sullen, but they had no choice but to accept it. Just at this moment, Apothecary Long led Su Luo quickly towards the throne room. Grandmaster Rong Yun's disciple, who would dare to block? As a result, Apothecary Long was unimpeded and unhindered as they arrived in the throne room. But before Su Luo saw Grandmaster Rong Yun, she used a small trick. She fished out the little divine dragon who was sleeping soundly in her space and carried him in her arms. Apothecary Long puzzlingly gave her a glance, but Su Luo only smilingly explained, "If this happens, then your master would at least give some face." Because he had not seen Grandmaster Rong Yun's preferential treatment towards the little divine dragon personally, so Apothecary Long remained puzzled. At this moment, they had already stepped into the throne room. "Your disciple pays his respects to master." Apothecary Long respectfully kneeled down to make his salutations. Apothecary Long's hair was grizzled and seemed aged, but he would call a man who was in his 20s, master. Also, his expression was very respectful. This kind of scene, in others' eyes, had an indescribable strangeness. However, Grandmaster Rong Yun and Apothecary Long were already accustomed to it. Grandmaster Rong Yun's expression was the same as before as he nodded slightly. His gaze moved over to Apothecary Long and cast a faint glance at Su Luo. To say it more accurately, he cast a glance at the little divine dragon in Su Luo's arms. Sure enough, his expression became slightly gentler. Apothecary Long looked at the row of gloomy apothecaries, and then looked at the medicinal pill tossed on the side, understanding flashing through his eyes. It seemed that none of these court apothecaries were chosen by Master. Apothecary Long bowed and said, "Master, this disciple brought a person to see you. This girl's gift in refining pills is indeed not bad. If Master sees it, then would certainly like it." Su Luo just so happened to move forward to pay her respects, but saw the corner of the Jade Lake's fairy's mouth raise into a smile. The Jade Lake's fairy gently looked at Apothecary Long, her tone bathed in the autumn wind and extremely sweet-sounding. "The apothecary selection is already finished. Apothecary Long, you have arrived too late." Anger flashed through Apothecary Long's eyes. If it was any other person, no matter what, they would give the Jade Lake's fairy some face. Unfortunately, Apothecary Long's temper was extremely eccentric. If he liked someone, then naturally, he would be extremely good to them. If he loathed someone, then naturally, he would be ruthless to them. He treated Su Luo well, then he naturally loathed Li Yaoyao. As a result, Long Yin sent her an unrestrained glare. "Who are you? In front of Master, how are you qualified to speak? Move to the side with you." Jade Lake's fairy completely did not anticipate that Long Yin would be this rudely blunt. For a split second, she was dumbfounded. Then another second passed, and her clear autumn eyes became misty with water, as if she was wronged but could only endure. At this moment, almost everybody used a condemning stare to glare at Apothecary Long. Long Yin's heart became even angrier. He was clearly speaking the truth, yet this loathsome girl, without touching her, would cry so easily? It was simply that the more he saw her, the more he disliked her. Apothecary Long snorted once. "Who are trying to fool with your acting? Aren't you just afraid that Su Luo's innate gift is better than yours, and as a result, you wouldn't dare to compete with her? So this way, you deliberately block her? Stop pretending to be innocent." Su Luo's heart truly could not endure it anymore and gave Apothecary Long a round of applause. Apothecary Long was worthy of being called a natural mediator. His words were sharp and did not beat around the bush. These words were blunt, however. It really said what was in the Jade Lake's fairy's thoughts. "I didn't." Li Yaoyao, whose thoughts were exposed, had a secret hatred flash through her eyes. Only now did she understand. Chapter 708, The Matter of Accepting a Disciple, 8. With regards to Long Yin, this kind of blunt asshole, putting on an act would only incur additional ruthless attacks from him. As a result, she had no choice but to put away her white lotus flower-like delicate female act and reinstate her rational manners. "Apothecary Long, I only judge matters as it stands. After all, Grandmaster had just examined many medicinal pills, and seeing that he is also tired, however, the adorable apothecary Long Yin sent her a strong glare. What are you saying? Don't tell me that in your eyes, Master is this weak? After inspecting a few bottles of medicine, he would already be tired? Are you cursing Master, or are you scornful of Master? In the end, what kind of evil intentions are you harboring? Moreover, is that my master or your master? Do not use this kind of self-believing attitude in front of me. A string of criticism showered down and tossed in the Jade Lake's fairy's face. Immediately, she was scolded stupid. It made her unable to return to reality for a while. She had been pampered and spoiled since childhood. When did she ever receive this kind of criticism? Even though she knew how to pretend, she still was unable to continue pretending. Even though in her heart, she had already considered Grandmaster Rong Yun as her teacher, but when all was said and done, she still had not officially become his disciple. Jade Lake's fairy's hands at her side clenched tightly, and she hurriedly walked forward, kneeling in front of Grandmaster Rong Yun. Master, my mouth was not screened properly and have offended you. Please, you mustn't be angry. Grandmaster Rong Yun's voice was clear and cold. Get up. Soon after, he somewhat helplessly sighed and cast a glance at Apothecary Long. You are already this old. Why is your temper still as fiery and explosive as a cannon? Then, in the future, how to get along with fellow disciples? Once Grandmaster Rong Yun's last words were said, the situation immediately made a startling reversal. Although the Jade Lake's fairy's face still looked wronged, however, no matter what, she could not conceal an expression of being pleased. Fellow disciples. What Grandmaster Rong Yun meant was that he had already tacitly agreed that she was his disciple. Thinking about this, Li Yaoyao's heart immediately became sweeter than honey. Today, the difficult questions that Apothecary Long raised, Li Yaoyao had engraved them deep in her heart. She decided to wait until after she had been accepted by Grandmaster Rong Yun as a disciple. She must think of a way to have Apothecary Long killed off. Emperor Jing had made an even more firm decision. After the end of the court session, he would personally go to Jade Lake's Li family to agree as quickly as possible on a wedding date. Otherwise, after Grandmaster Rong Yun had accepted Li Yaoyao as a disciple, the Jade Lake's Li family would be so arrogant as to have their tails stuck up. After hearing Grandmaster Rong Yun's words, Apothecary Long's expression became somewhat gloomy. Listening to Master's tone of voice, it's as if he was truly going to accept Li Yaoyao. Long Yao's temperament was straightforward. He did not like Li Yaoyao, this kind of young woman who puts on acts. He felt that Su Luo was very good, with a similar temperament to his that did not bother about trifles. Thinking like this, he was even more resolute in his notion about marketing Su Luo to Grandmaster Rong Yun. Master, you should take a look. This girl is really pretty good. Maybe she would really fit your intentions. Just looking wouldn't delay much of your time. Grandmaster Rong Yun cast him glance. In the end, his gaze still landed on the little divine dragon's body, who was in Su Luo's arms. Under the Jade Lake's fairy's expectant gaze, Grandmaster Rong Yun in the end still nodded his head. Present the medicinal pill. The Jade Lake's fairy was hesitant and was just thinking about going or not. But she could only see that Apothecary Long had already brought up and presented the medicinal pill Su Luo refined. Master, once you have a look, I guarantee you will be shocked. Grandmaster Rong Yun slanted him a glance, his gaze landing on the white jade porcelain bottle in his hand. At this moment, the Jade Lake's fairy's gaze was staring fixedly at Grandmaster Rong Yun, attempting to find any clues of his mood from his face. In fact, she did not believe that Su Luo's ability at refining medicines was stronger than hers. Only, that little slut's luck was really too good, every time. At the crucial point, she would turn the tables and take the win. Chapter 709. The Matter of Accepting a Disciple. 9. It could be said that the Jade Lake's fairy was afraid of losing against Su Luo's luck. At this moment, besides the Jade Lake's fairy, the gazes of nearly everybody present were on Grandmaster Rong Yun's face. Su Luo's name recently really resounded in the entire imperial capital. As a result, many people recognized it was her. But because her reputation in the past was bad, therefore, many people did not think too highly of her. Isn't this Su Xian's unmarried daughter? That day, the one who had a life-and-death duel with her sister? It's exactly that one. From rumors, her strength is pretty good, however. No one ever said she could refine medicine before. Just her could be compared to the Jade Lakes fairy? Don't know how she deceived Apothecary Long to actually persistently be on her side. To let her come out at this moment, isn't it losing our imperial court's face? At that time, when Grandmaster Rong Yun explodes from anger, who would be able to bear it? The ministers discussed this spiritedly. None of them were optimistic about Su Luo, because in their minds, the Jade Lakes fairy was like a fairy from the 9th layer of heaven, whereas Su Luo was merely a silly girl in the ordinary human world. How could this be mentioned on equal terms? Not only were the court ministers discussing this spiritedly, in Emperor Jing's heart, it was also like 10,000 horses rushing on grassland. Even though he had only seen Su Luo once before, but the impression this loathsome girl left was deeper than anybody else's. Just barely saw her once, his second son, who was usually obedient, used his poisonous tongue to almost anger him to death. There was also his treasure storage pavilion. Indeed, just thinking about it made him furious. Emperor Jing sent a very fierce glare towards Su Luo, and Su Luo as well felt something at this moment. She lifted her eyes and met with Emperor Jing's gaze. Afterwards, the corner of her mouth unhurriedly lifted into a shallow smile, a very meaningful smiling expression. Emperor Jing coldly and heavily snorted a few times. He promised Second Child not to kill her, however, this did not represent that he would indulge Second Child to be led astray by this loathsome girl. He had decided that after court was dismissed, he would set a wedding date with the Li family. Thinking up to here, Emperor Jing cast a hateful glare at Su Luo. However, right now, Su Luo already didn't have the inclination to infuriate him. Her complete attention was focused on Grandmaster Rong Yun's body. Grandmaster Rong Yun sniffed the medicine in the white jade porcelain bottle, a peculiar expression then flashing across his face. Rather, his white as jade palm spread open and poured out a single medicinal pill. This one move immediately attracted everybody's attention. Because before, with those 7 apothecaries, Grandmaster Rong Yun merely sniffed them a bit before casting them aside. Now, he had poured it out. Could it be that this girl from Su family truly had a chance? Grandmaster Rong Yun looked at the semi-transparent white pill in his hands, his forehead wrinkling again. This piece of spirit restoration pill was rich, clear, and transparent. Indeed, it was truly a very high-grade product. Only elementary apothecary? He looked at Long Yin, his eyes sharp as ice blades. Long Yan's expression flashed with a trace of embarrassment. He also knew that Su Luo's rank was too low. However, who told her to start refining so late? There was nothing to be done about it. Just when he was about to explain, Grandmaster Rong Yun had already returned the medicinal pill into the white jade porcelain bottle. Soon after, he tossed that porcelain bottle back to Su Luo. Elementary apothecary? At this moment, everybody was startled and dumbfounded by this news. Apothecary Long actually recommended an elementary apothecary to Grandmaster Rong Yun. This was simply an insult to Grandmaster Rong Yun. Finished. Once Grandmaster Rong Yun gets angry, nobody should even think of living well for another day. One after another, until everybody's heart harbored complaints towards Su Luo. The mocking smile at the corner of Jade Lake's fairy's mouth expanded without limits. Fancy that she would still consider this little slut as an opponent. However, she never imagined that she was merely an insignificant little elementary apothecary. Just like this, she still dared to come and compete with her? If this wasn't suicide, then what was? In this split second, Li Yaoyao's was feeling extremely good. She had a smile on her face and cynically looked at Su Luo. Chapter 7:10. The Matter of Accepting a Disciple. 10. and from beginning to end, Su Luo's expression was always indifferent, with an unconcerned appearance. Grandmaster Rong Yun stood up. Jade Lake Fairy hurriedly stepped forward to serve. The crowd of people, one by one, knelt down to respectfully send off Grandmaster Rong Yun. Since everyone had already been eliminated, then, the Jade Lakes Fairy was the sole candidate. Just when everybody was waiting to congratulate the Jade Lakesley family, as Grandmaster Rong Yun passed by Su Luo, he clearly said a sentence. After 10 days, you should gather all the stuff together, otherwise, you will lose the first round. Saying this, he tossed a rolled-up piece of white paper to Su Luo, then left without turning around. Jade Lake's Fairy followed closely behind Grandmaster Rong Yun. Originally, she had wanted to seize the opportunity to taunt Su Luo with some words, but after hearing what Grandmaster Rong Yun had said, she was momentarily stupefied. Her entire body froze rigidly on the spot. Grandmaster Rong Yun's words meant, Su Luo got past the qualifying round? How could an elementary apothecary even compete with her? Hateful. A thread of hatred flashed in the Jade Lake's Fairy's eyes. In the end, where had the mistake occurred? Or was it that Apothecary Long truly had a huge influence on Grandmaster Rong Yun? At an angle others could not see, Jade Lake's Fairy sent a fierce glare at Apothecary Long. She thoroughly hated Apothecary Long. And at this moment, Su Luo just so happened to look at her. The cynicalness that flashed in her eyes made the fury in the Jade Lake's Fairy's heart soar even more. Then, I'll first congratulate you in advance. Hope you won't lose in the first round will be good. Jade Lake Fairy smiled insincerely. I won't lose then. The person who will lose is you. The Jade Lake's Fairy is truly magnanimous. You want to let me have this opportunity? The corner of Su Luo's mouth held a smile, her tone light. The Jade Lake's Fairy angrily squeezed her clenched fists, but her face still maintained a touch of a clear, cold smile. Su Luo, in fact, why should I? You are only an elementary apothecary. Spending such a huge price to fawn on Apothecary Long. What kind of outcome could there be? Jade Lake's Fairy proved herself to be called the Jade Lake's Fairy. Before, Apothecary Long had directly supported Su Luo, thus, she immediately splashed dirty water onto Su Luo, hinting that Su Luo had fawned on Apothecary Long to get here. What's wrong with being an elementary apothecary? Even though I'm an elementary apothecary, I can also beat you. Su Luo said with all smiles. Beat me? It seemed as if the Jade Lake's Fairy had heard the funniest joke on earth. Her eyes contained a smile and said to the surrounding people with a laugh, she said she can beat me, do you guys believe it? All the civil and military ministers in court burst into loud laughter. What's called overestimating one's abilities. I finally experienced it today. This Su Zian, how did he bring up such a shameless daughter? Saying these kinds of words and not knowing how embarrassing it is. I even feel ashamed for her. That's right, as an elementary apothecary, she thought she was an advanced apothecary? Grandmaster Rong Yun is such a noble existence. How could he accept an elementary apothecary to be his disciple? Jade Lake's Fairy heard the court minister's words and was full of satisfaction. She complacently cast a sidelong glance at Su Luo. She coldly and arrogantly passed by Su Luo's side, shook her sleeves and left. Su Luo's voice sounded behind her. It appears quite a lot of advanced-level apothecaries didn't get past the qualifying round. And yet I, this very small and lowly elementary apothecary, passed. Oh. Jade Lake Fairy squeezed her clenched fists, added more strength to her feet, and turned around to walk away quickly. When all was said and done, the Jade Lake's Fairy had suffered too many losses under Su Luo, therefore, she still avoided Su Luo like the plague. At this moment, the entire hall was nearly absolutely silent. Almost everyone's gazes were concentrated on Su Luo's body. No matter how much they thought, they could not understand. She was clearly an elementary apothecary. Why was she chosen by Grandmaster Rong Yun? Among these, the most jealous would be those 7 court apothecaries. Chapter 7:11. The matter of accepting a disciple. 11. Each and every one of them were well-known apothecaries in Eastern Ling Empire. The lowest level among them was an intermediate apothecary, but now, they had lost to an elementary apothecary. How could you ask them to endure this? Even more so, they basically didn't understand. Why did Grandmaster Rong Yun allow that girl to pass the qualifying round? Compared to other people, Emperor Jing was even more shocked. Now, his entire body sat stiffly on the dragon throne. His expression when looking at Su Luo was extremely complex. At this moment, the words Nangong Luyun said to him before leaving appeared in his mind. He said that on Su Luo's body, you should not be astonished at anything that was impossible occurring with regards to Su Luo. It was because she just happened to have that kind of good luck. If he dared to make it difficult for Su Luo, wait until he came back. He would tear the entire empire into pieces. These were the exact words Nangong Luyun said. Emperor Jing also remembered that when Nangong Luyun said these words, inside the room, it was enveloped in icy frost. The temperature had dropped below freezing point. It gave him the illusion of being able to see the Grim Reaper. Emperor Jing continued to look at Su Luo with a foolish expression. With great difficulty, he swallowed some saliva. So many intermediate apothecaries and advanced apothecaries were all looked down by Grandmaster Rong Yun to such a degree. But Su Luo, this tiny, lowly elementary apothecary, actually made it past the qualifying round? If this wasn't luck, then what was it? Your Majesty, do you want to go to the Jade Lakesley family? The head court eunuch secretly suggested to Emperor Jing. Just a moment ago, Emperor Jing had already instructed people to prepare the betrothal gift. Now, the betrothal gift had been prepared properly. It was time to send the betrothal gifts. This kind of matter needed to be done early. It was inadvisable for it to be delayed. At this moment, Emperor Jing's mind was in chaos, very much tangled up. Momentarily, he didn't know what to do that would be best. He thought about it, and he still decided to stay put. Wait until Grandmaster Rong Yun had picked the real disciple, then discuss it. In this way, he wouldn't be wrong again. At that time, sending the betrothal gifts to Jade Lakesley family, surely Nangong Luyun would understand. Had better. Wait again. Waiting until the results were out was bound to be the safest. Emperor Jing did not believe Su Luo could win. Rather, it was because he trusted in Nangong Luyun's vision. This kind of news always spread very quickly. Before Su Luo even returned to the manor, this news were like a virus spreading to and within Su Manor. Originally, Su Zian had believed that Su Luo going to the throne room would become a laughingstock. Currently, he was extremely worried about this, but suddenly, he heard such good news spreading from outside. Immediately, he was completely stupefied. What? Su Luo actually made it past the qualifying round? And also, she was chosen after Grandmaster Rong Yun had looked down on many intermediate and advanced apothecaries. Moreover, Su Luo did all this in a situation where she arrived late. She could even pass this way? Why would the heavens be this generous to her? In the end, just how many secrets had this girl concealed from him? First, she hid her light under a bushel to secretly cultivate. Afterwards, she firmly concealed her identity as an apothecary. If it was not for Grandmaster Rong Yun accepting a disciple at this time, very likely he, as her father, wouldn't even know until the next lifetime that his daughter was actually an apothecary. Watching for Su Luo to return to the manor, Su Zian originally wanted to immediately go up and welcome her. However, he thought a bit and felt that way would lose too much of his dignity and airs as a father. As a result, he gave a slight cough and sat properly in the great hall, waiting for Su Luo to pay her respects to him. However, he waited left and right, and still could not see Su Luo returning after all the waiting. Didn't the servants say that this loathsome girl had returned to the manor? For more than half a day, even if she had crawled, she would still have been able to crawl from the gate to this great hall. Su Zian held back his expression and glared at the steward who had arrived in a hurry. Where is the fourth miss? Why is it that I still haven't seen her come over? An awkward expression flashed across the steward's eyes. Fourth miss directly returned to her wisteria courtyard. In other words, Su Zian sitting here waiting was his own wishful thinking? Su Zian's complexion immediately dropped and became gloomy. Chapter 7:12. The Matter of Accepting a Disciple. 12. He was so angry that he smashed the teacup in his hand. Loathsome girl, really believe that your wings have grown strong. In the end, does she even have this father in her eyes? Master, how about you personally? Personally, fart. Get lost. Su Zian, panting with rage, sat back down in the chair. He was so regretful that he was nearly gnashing his teeth. At this moment, it was very quiet in Su Manor. Su Zian was in a rage for a while. Unexpectedly, he had a slight feeling of his blood going cold. He wanted to look for someone to talk to, but suddenly discovered that in such a huge Su Manor, he didn't even have a single person to talk to. Su Wan was already thrown into the forest. Even her skeleton didn't remain behind. Su Qing didn't know which great expert had saved her, didn't know her whereabouts. Su Jingyu was reclining weakly on the bed, half dead, not much alive. Madame Su, as above. The only person that could still walk and jump was Su Shi. However, due to his slap, he didn't know where she had run off to. Nowadays, in Su Manor, the only one living comfortably was Su Luo, who everyone had despised and was disdainful of from before. Su Zian put his head in his hands. He truly couldn't understand, just in more than half a year's time, why had the circumstances reversed so much? When did everything start to happen? It was from that moment that Su Luo had woken up that everything started to change. Su Zian's expression now was discussing and conjuring, suddenly bright then dark, making it hard for people to see clearly. But speaking of Su Luo, after returning to Wisteria Courtyard, she opened that piece of paper that Grandmaster Rong Yun had given her. She had just glanced at it and couldn't help but suck in a cold breath of air. The first topic mentioned, with regards to her, was too difficult, right? Gather 7 pieces of crystal stones, divided into red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue and purple, the 7 colors, with 1 piece of each color. Su Luo plaintively hugged the comforter and rolled about on her bed. This was asking her to go where to magic out a purple-colored crystal stone, huh? Red, orange, green, cyan, and blue. These 6, she really did have. It was because the amethyst crystal fish in her space was like a venerable hen that could lay eggs. Moreover, her amethyst crystal fish followed the 3 meals a day to drop a crystal stone. Therefore, these days, Su Luo had been paying attention all along. Once a high-grade crystal stone came out, she had always stored it away. The lower-grade ones were used by her and the little divine dragon to cultivate. As a result, now, Su Luo could take out the first 6 colors of crystal stones. As for the last purple-colored one, she really didn't have it. She simply had never even seen it before. 10 days' time, making her go where to find it. During this time, Bei Qining made a trip to come over. Hearing the news that Su Luo was looking for a purple-colored crystal stone, he was startled until his eyes opened wide. Purple-colored crystal stone. Isn't this too difficult? Su Luo aggrievedly threw up her hands. That's right. Only heaven knows where this piece of purple-colored crystal stone can be found. Rest assured. Bei Qining was about to say more, but was interrupted by Su Luo. Your Beichen aristocratic family is 54,000 kilometers away. You couldn't make a round trip within 10 days. Su Luo gave a sigh. Moreover, such a precious thing as a purple-colored crystal stone, how could Bei Qining even ask his clan for it? She didn't want to owe such a huge favor. The always sunshine-like big boy child Bei Qining now had his brows tightly knotted. The Jade Lakesley family home is not far from here, more than enough to make a round trip in 10 days. Are you saying Grandmaster Rong Yun is leaning on Li Yao Yao's side? In fact, Su Luo's heart had always thought this way, only she was not certain. Otherwise, how else? It's not 3 days, not 5 days, but exactly 10 days. Bei Qining frowned. On the surface, it seems she is indeed more suited than me to be Grandmaster Rong Yun's disciple. Su Luo spread out her hands. She only knows how to make some effort on the surface. I merely doubt that having her follow along Grandmaster Rong Yun's side for more than half a year already. How is it that Grandmaster Rong Yun did not discover her true colors? Bei Qining frowned suspiciously. Chapter 713. The Matter of Accepting a Disciple. 13. Su Luo used one hand to prop up her chin, also expressing her doubts. Grandmaster Rong Yun was accustomed to being indifferent. His methods of doing things were enigmatic and impossible to predict. No matter how much people pondered, they really were unable to understand. However, she always felt that Grandmaster Rong Yun, being that sort of wise and far-sighted person, should have been able to see Li Yaoyao's true colors. If this was the case, then why did he still side with her? The more Su Luo thought about it, the more her head hurt. Forget it, it's just the first exam question. Losing is fine, consider it a loss. There are still opportunities after this. Su Luo spread out her hands. If you've already lost the first round, then it will be very hard to win it back later. Bei Qinying's gaze was gentle and soft like water. He stood up and rubbed Su Luo's head. This sort of intimate action was something only Nangong would do. So, momentarily, Su Luo had a somewhat blank expression. Just at this moment of being distracted, Bei Qinying had already walked far away. This child. How can he just randomly rub someone's head? Su Luo grumbled a line of complaint, without actually thinking too deeply about it. During these 10 days, Su Luo did not actually stay idle. Aside from refining drugs in her space, the rest of her time was spent staring at the amethyst crystal fish. Additionally, she kept telling the little divine dragon repeatedly that he must not be gluttonous and eat it on the sly. The little divine dragon also understood the seriousness of the matter, and his little head nodded solemnly. The several days after, he did not even go play the water sports he loved the most. His small body just laid on his stomach in front of the amethyst crystal fish. Two large limpid eyes, with clearly distinct black and white sections, stared fixedly at the amethyst crystal fish without blinking. However, even if it was like this, the amethyst crystal fish was still very disappointing. Until the last day, the amethyst crystal fish still had not spit out that purple-colored crystal stone that Su Luo had wanted the most. Su Luo let out a sigh. There was no other way. Even though she was not able to obtain the purple-colored crystal stone, Su Luo still got up really early in the morning. After freshening up and dressing, she looked like a completely new person. Like this, she went towards the throne room. In the throne room, there were less civil and military officials this time. Yet, there were more of Jade Lakesley family's people. Li Yaoxiong, Li Yaoqiong were all present. Jade Lake's fairy had a smile in her eyes. She cast a glance at Su Luo with that smile that was not a smile. One must know yourself and know your enemy. Only then can you come out unscathed through 100 battles. 1. The Jade Lakesley family naturally had taken notice of the activity on Su Luo's side all along. Who told her to be the only finalist that passed a fight with the Jade Lakes fairy for the position? The news that the Jade Lakesley family asked around and got was that there was no movements in Su Manor, only Bei Qinying was outside, busily running around. Moreover, it was a pity that every time, he would return disappointed. Grandmaster Rong Yun sat at a high place. Today's him was still dressed in a soft, white robe. Aristocratic and graceful, his pitch-black, ink-colored eyes carried a kind of deeply hidden sharpness in the midst of seemingly being empty and misty. Apothecary Long stood on the steps and with a loud voice, said, 10 days' time is already over. Now, present the items with both hands. When he spoke, Apothecary Long swept a worried gaze over Su Luo's face. The news in the entire imperial capital was usually thorough. All of Su Manor's activities were observed by everyone. At this time, almost everyone didn't have any hope placed on Su Luo. However, thinking about it, it also made sense. One was Jade Lakesley family's little princess. The other was the very small Su Manor's unfavored daughter birthed by a concubine. This sort of matter that involved one's background, family property and connections, how could Su Luo possibly win? Also, it was a purple-colored crystal stone. How could she possibly bring one out? The corner of Jade Lake's fairies contained the traces of a slight smile. She placed a red silk bag on the tray and took a step back. After standing firmly back in her place, she used a provocative gaze to sweep towards Su Luo. However, Su Luo, at that moment, stood there motionless. Su Luo's peculiarity drew in everyone's attention. What was this? Su Manor's unfavored daughter birthed by a concubine, waiting for. It seemed as if she was trying to stall for time. However, everyone could not understand. If this was any other matter, then fine. However, with this purple-colored crystal stone, even if she stalled for time, if she could not bring it out, then she simply could not bring it out. In the end, what exactly was she waiting for? Could it be that she would wait and wait, allowing her to wait until it arrived? 1. One must know yourself and know your enemy. Only then can you come out unscathed through 100 battles. This was from Susie's Book of the Art of War, a famous book written in 776, 471 BC on strategies of war. Chapter 714, Rong Yun's Bias. 1. In fact, Su Luo was still waiting. That morning, the amethyst crystal fish still had not spit out a crystal stone yet. Therefore, she placed all of her last hopes on this last chance. She hoped the amethyst crystal fish would, at the most crucial moment, be able to spit out the purple crystal stone that she needed the most. Please, please. Didn't everyone all say her luck was good? That she's the illegitimate daughter of the goddess of fortune? This time's luck must be very impressive. Su Luo was praying secretly inside her heart. A hint of a sneer flashed across the Jade Lake's fairy's eyes. Miss Su, it's your turn. The corner of Su Luo's mouth contained a trace of a shallow smile. There's no hurry. Has the Jade Lake's fairy already collected them all? Liao Yao gave a smile that was not a smile. Waiting for you to hand in the exam. Naturally, I'll wait to see the results. Hurry and go up. Stop delaying for time. If Grandmaster Rong Yun gets angry, the consequences will be severe. At this time, Su Luo talking about this and that with Jade Lake's fairy was just a stall for more time. There were still 10 minutes left before the amethyst crystal fish would spit out another crystal stone. The Jade Lake's fairy noticed that Su Luo was still deliberately stalling for time and could not help but sneer. Miss Su, if you don't have the purple-colored crystal stone, then you just don't have it. Even if you wait, it won't come. How long will you drag this out? Su Luo did not pay her any attention. She maintained her eye-mulling over it expression and nearly infuriated the Jade Lake's fairy to death. On the surface, Su Luo seemed calm and collected, but actually, inside her heart, she was secretly anxious. Su Luo had never known that time originally passed this slowly. These 10 minutes let her fully experience the torment. Just right at this time, Grandmaster Rong Yun shot a glance at Su Luo. His clear and cold voice rang out, "Time, pop." Before Grandmaster Rong Yun could finish speaking, he saw a little dragon suddenly leap up towards his body. The little divine dragon, having received Su Luo's command, ran into Grandmaster Rong Yun's arms and acted cutely. Before Grandmaster Rong Yun had treated him well. Now, seeing him run over, Grandmaster Rong Yun also came to like it. The little divine dragon didn't just stay well-behaved in his arms and acted cute. He was very lively, leaping up and down. One moment here, then another moment there. Suddenly, he leapt up onto that table. As everyone knew, the embroidered pouch that had every color of crystal stone was placed on this tray. The speed of the little divine dragon's paws were very fast. Don't know where he got his courage from, and one paw went into the pouch and grabbed something, immediately stuffing it into his mouth. Even though his action was quick, under thousands of staring eyes, everyone had seen it very clearly. As a result, everyone froze, staring blankly. What was this supposed to be? Wrapped inside that embroidered pouch was clearly the items the Jade Lake's fairy had handed in. The bystanders were shocked, but how could their shock be compared to the Jade Lakesley family's? Wrapped inside that was actually 7 colors of crystal stone, with 1 for each color. If it had been something else, then forget it. But the purple-colored crystal stone was extremely hard to come by. Even though they were one of the strongest among the 10 great powers, they also had to grit their teeth to bear the pain before managing to gather them all. Li Yaoxiang got so angry that his face flushed red. Subconsciously, he wanted to rush up there and examine it. However, Before waiting for him to even get close, the two chamberlains at Grandmaster Rong Yun's side obstructed Li Yaoxiang's way. One indifferent voice, like the wind, said, "Stop right there." A grim and bloodthirsty voice said, "Courting death?" The hot blood that rushed up to Li Yaoxiang's head cooled down in a flash. Only then did he realize that a moment ago, he almost offended Grandmaster Rong Yun. Even though he realized this point, but due to arrogance, it only eased the tension in his expression slightly. "Grandmaster Rong Yun, please examine them for a moment. Which crystal stones did we, the Jade Lakesley family, lose? If it was others, then fine. If it turned out to be the purple-colored crystal stone." For Li Yaoxiang, just thinking about it, felt his head hurt. At this moment, the corner of Su Luo's mouth twitched slightly. She somewhat speechlessly supported her forehead with her hand and raised her head to look at the sky. It was because of her family's little divine dragon's treasure hunt ability. Chapter 715, Rong Yun's Bias, 2. If he was to take something, then just take the best. So, she was certain that what the little divine dragon took away was definitely the purple-colored crystal stone. Grandmaster Rong Yun's expression did not change. His gaze when looking at the little divine dragon carried a trace of a gentle smile. In an indifferent voice, he instructed the chamberlain, "Pour it out and let's have a look." "Yes, master." The coldly detached one stepped forward and picked up the corner of the embroidered purse. A crashing sound rang out, and the crystal stones poured out onto the table. Li Yaoxiang stared fixedly at that pile of crystal stones. After seeing things clearly, immediately, a huge change occurred in his expression. What just happened here? Where is the purple-colored crystal stone? And also, the blue-colored crystal stone? Why is it that they're all gone? The more he said, the more worked up he got. At this moment, the little divine dragon had already returned back to Grandmaster Rong Yun's arms. His little head was pressed tightly against Grandmaster Rong Yun's chest. That pair of clammy, limpid eyes were simply way too lovable. The moment Li Yaoxiang raised his head, he was faced with the little divine dragon's innocent-looking eyes. Suddenly, a wave of anger rushed towards his head. "Quickly, have the purple and blue-colored crystal stones returned? Otherwise, you'll be skinned with your tendons pulled out." How precious was the purple-colored crystal stone that his family's old father could not even bear to cultivate with it. Yet, now, it had been swallowed in one gulp by the little thing in front of his eyes. The little divine dragon's two small claws were clinging tightly to Grandmaster Rong Yun's clothes, his pair of eyes looking innocent and at a loss. The fierce and tough Li Yaoxiang going against the stupidly adorable little divine dragon. Even though everyone had seen the little divine dragon steal the crystal stones, but Li Yaoxiang's aggressiveness made everyone furrow their eyebrows. Li Yaoxiang wished he could rush up there, capture that little thing, and immediately beat it to death, still pretending to be innocent, still pretending to be bewildered, pretending to be innocent and bewildered your sister's fart. You little thief. However, the little divine dragon, who had a backer, simply did not pay any attention to his volcanic eruption-like rage. He only looked towards Grandmaster Rong Yun without letting go. He knew that Grandmaster Rong Yun really favored him. Confronted with Li Yaoxiang's clownish hopping mad behavior, Grandmaster Rong Yun frowned slightly. He swept a disgusted glance over at Li Yaoxiang. "What are you anxious about? You're scaring it." While Grandmaster Rong Yun smoothed out the little dragon's scales, he was also trying to appease him. Li Yaoxiang was immediately dumbfounded. Not just Li Yaoxiang, it could be said that almost all the people present were dumbfounded. Look at this. Grandmaster Rong Yun, who had always been just and harsh, what sort of thing did he just say? This little thief stole something in a public place with numerous people, yet he wouldn't even allow the victim to reproach it loudly because it would scare this little thief badly? Everyone looked speechlessly towards Grandmaster Rong Yun. So, it turned out that even someone as noble as Grandmaster Rong Yun, his heart also developed bias. Moreover, he was biased in such a justifiable and unbridled way. Alas, who asked him to be set up so high? To be the Grandmaster Rong Yun that everyone wanted to look up to admirably? At this time, countless people were delusionally fantasizing that they were the little dragon inside Grandmaster Rong Yun's arms. To receive Grandmaster Rong Yun's bias, how blessed would that be? The Jade Lake's fairy was almost unable to maintain the smile on her face anymore. She had always thought that regardless if he was faced with a monk or even Buddha, Grandmaster Rong Yun would always be biased towards her. However, it was when Li Yaoxiang was relentlessly reprimanded a moment ago that she suddenly came to realize. The Grandmaster was most biased not towards her, nor Su Luo, but towards this little dragon. Looking at this little dragon, the expression on the Jade Lake's fairy's face condensed into frosted ice. The rage inside her heart burned unceasingly. How could she forget that time when they were at the Amethyst Fish Palace? This little thing was still a little puppy at that time. However, it played tricks on her until such a shameful thing happened to her. Great Master, the Jade Lake's fairy held back the rage inside her heart and squeezed out a stiff smile onto her face. Those pieces of purple and blue-colored crystal stones. Grandmaster Rong Yun lifted his hand. The Jade Lake's fairy immediately was unable to make a sound. No one else dared to jump out again. Chapter 716. Rong Yun's Bias. 3. Then, afterwards, Grandmaster Rong Yun placed both hands under the little divine dragon's arms, bringing him up until their eyes met. His expression carried a trace of interest. How many did you steal? The little divine dragon tilted his head and thought for a moment, then thought some more, and finally extended one little finger. Just one. Traces of a smile flashed across Grandmaster Rong Yun's eyes. However, these traces flashed across so fast that other than himself, almost no one else noticed it. The little divine dragon stretched out its face and nodded solemnly. Just that one. There weren't any more. You are good. One grab and you grab their most precious piece. Grandmaster Rong Yun exasperatedly poked his little head. There was actually a trap in what Grandmaster Rong Yun said. When everyone was still at a loss and ignorant, with regards to the little divine dragon's theft, Grandmaster Rong Yun had already washed it clean. One grab, and you grab their most precious one. Moreover, the little dragon emphasized that he only took one. Then, this piece. In the end, was it the purple-colored crystal stone or the blue-colored crystal stone? The little divine dragon covered his forehead that felt somewhat painful from being poked. He pouted his little mouth, looking aggrieved. The hearts of the people who saw it would all go soft. Everyone could not help but believe that this adorable little thing only stole one stone. Just a moment ago, Li Yaoxiang had done his best to restrain himself. However, seeing Grandmaster Rong Yun's attitude, the more he saw, the more he felt there was something fishy and could not help but interrupt loudly. Great Master, this statement is wrong. How can it be just one piece? Obviously it was two. The little divine dragon turned its body around. Panting with rage, he extended one little claw. One. Just one. Li Yaoxiang said hatefully. The blue-colored crystal stone and the purple-colored crystal stone are both missing. How can it be just one? You little thing, not only do you steal, but you also lie. Simply bad to the bone. The little dragon, panting angrily, continued to extend his little middle claw, as if to say it was just one, just that one. Grandmaster Rong Yun glared at Li Yaoxiang. Don't think that just because the little divine dragon can't talk, you can slander it. The moment Li Yaoxiang heard that, immediately, he choked on a mouthful of blood in his throat. Slander? He slandered which shameless little dragon? What sort of talk was this? Grandmaster Rong Yun was surely too biased? Li Yaoxiang was so angry that he nearly stomped about. Great Master, how can you be so biased? It's obviously that it stole away two pieces. The crystal stones inside that bag were ones I personally placed inside. I placed them in there personally. How many there were inside? How could I have counted wrong? Grandmaster Rong Yun frowned. He cast an indifferent glance at him, and you still consider yourself the second master of the Jade Lake Palace, lowering yourself to argue with a magical beast. Li Yaoxiang choked on another mouthful of blood inside his throat. Even defending his own rights was wrong? How could it be that having had something stolen, one still has to praise the other party for a job well done in stealing it? What sort of reasoning was this? In fact, this was Grandmaster Rong Yun's justification. In fact, Grandmaster Rong Yun was essentially the same as Apothecary Lung inside. For someone they cared about, they would be extremely protective, biased, and indulge them without any limits. Li Yaoxiang could not swallow those two mouthfuls of anger down. Finally, he said hatefully, "Then, according to Great Master's meaning, this matter will just be let go like this?" Grandmaster Rong Yun cast an indifferent glance at him. It's rare that he has something he likes. Just give it to him to play with. In other words, having the little divine dragon take a fancy to your family's crystal stone, you should be honored. Instead, you're here making a big fuss. How scandalous. Having heard what was said, Li Yaoxiang once again had a mouthful of blood rise up rapidly. He felt that he was soon going to cough up all the blood he had left. He felt that in all the years he had lived, he still had never seen someone so biased to such a generous and magnanimous degree. It was to the point of even being confident that justice was on his side. Actually, it was not just him. All the people present were all somewhat speechlessly looking at Grandmaster Rong Yun. They also really had never seen a person as biased as this before. It really was an eye-opener. Chapter 717, Rong Yun's Bias, 4. But what means were there? His strength was tyrannical, the only Grandmaster rank apothecary in existence on the continent. If he wanted to be biased, what could you do? In order to curry favor with him, didn't they conceal their conscience and lick his face? Praised him for being biased well, for being honorably biased, for being biased in an open-hearted and magnanimous way? Therefore, it can be said that in this world of the strong being respected, strength was the firm reasoning. Without strength, just like Li Yaoxiang in front of Grandmaster Rong Yun, then one must eat a loss. Li Yaoxiang tolerated it again and again, but he still could not bear it. He asked with a cold face, "The blue and purple-colored crystal stones that were stolen, how is Great Master prepared to deal with the matter?" Grandmaster Rong Yun cast a puzzled glance at him, then asked distrustfully, "Could it be that those crystal stones were not presented by you guys?" Yes, they were. Naturally, they were presented by the Jade Lakesley family. Grandmaster Rong Yun was even more puzzled. Since it was presented by you guys, then it should be considered as this apothecary's possession. Whoever this apothecary wants to give it to, I can give it to. Why are you commenting on it? Li Yaoxiang was immediately left speechless. But this was wrong. Even though it was something that was presented, but after the examination, wasn't it supposed to be returned? How could Grandmaster Rong Yun just take them for his own? However, this was not something Li Yaoxiang could say. Once said and caused him to be angry. What's to be done if he directly did not want Li Yaoyao to be his disciple anymore? Therefore, the expression on Li Yaoxiang's face was what's called twisted, just as though he was constipated. Actually, at the start, Grandmaster Rong Yun truly had no plans for wanting these items. He had originally intended to examine it and then allow for them to be taken back. However, who could have imagined that the little divine dragon would cause such a brief episode? Adding to this, Li Yaoxiang was jumping up and down on this again and again. So, in order to tackle the difficult problem, he just accepted the items as his own. Why would Grandmaster Rong Yun care about the fact that Li Yaoxiang was all twisted over there? The people he cared about had always been few in number. At this moment, Grandmaster Rong Yun placed the crystal stones back into the embroidered purse. He used a long string to tie a knot. While he was at it, he hung it onto the little divine dragon's neck. "Since you like it, then take all of these too." This was just too biased. The expression on the Li family's people was what was called unsightly. A second ago, Grandmaster Rong Yun had specifically taken the embroidered purse as his own. However, a second after, he just gave the stuff to the little divine dragon. This was simply too much. Actually, the even more insulting thing still had not happened yet. The little divine dragon somewhat disdainfully jabbed at the deflated embroidered purse. There was an undergarment, hanging on his neck, really ugly. The little divine dragon expressed his great dislike and disdain for it. Upon seeing this, Grandmaster Rong Yun could not help but smile. He straightened the embroidered purse that was made crooked by the little divine dragon's jabbing. He pulled out a few blue crystal stones from who knows where to stuff into the embroidered purse until it was full to the brim. Then, he patted the little divine dragon's head. "You should be happy now, right?" "Awoo, awoo, awoo." The perfectly satisfied little divine dragon nodded hurriedly, then excitedly abandoned Grandmaster Rong Yun, who he had finished exploiting. He turned around and rushed towards Su Luo. All at once, he leaped into Su Luo's arms. Then, as if to take credit, he took off the embroidered purse and stuffed all of it into Su Luo's sleeve. Seeing this, the corner of everyone's mouths, without exception, twitched. "What do you call this matter?" The Li family's crystal stones were taken by Grandmaster Rong Yun as his own. Grandmaster Rong Yun gave the crystal stones to the little dragon and made a loss by adding several more blue-colored crystal stones. The result, the little divine dragon gave the crystal stones to that unremarkable young concubine's daughter from Su family. At this time, everyone used mystified gazes to stare fixedly at Su Luo. Envious, simply too envious. If they also had Su Luo's great luck, how nice would it be to have a little dragon like this as a spirit pet? At this time, the Jade Lake's fairy stared at Su Luo hatefully. 1. Loosely translated as undergarment, it is a piece of cloth with strings to tie around the neck and back. It acted like a bra for women and babies where it 2C image below but is shaped almost like a bib. So, it's a traditional undergarment for women, equivalent to the modern-day bra but covering more skin and clothing for babies. Chapter 718. Rong Yun's Bias. 5. Li Yaoyao's pair of beautiful eyes ignited with a raging inferno, itching to burn Su Luo until not even ashes were left. Hateful. She originally thought that this time, her victory was assured. However, who would have known that halfway through, Su Luo, that busybody, jumped out unexpectedly to disrupt her plans. If Grandmaster Rong Yun was a person who would love Su Luo because of the little divine dragon, then her position would be in danger. Jade Lake's fairy could not endure it anymore and took a step forward. She bowed to make her salutations to Grandmaster Rong Yun. What Great Master said is naturally correct. However, how will the outcome of this match be determined now? That's right. There was no definite proof of how many pieces of crystal stones the little divine dragon had grabbed. From the start till she presented the items, only the Jade Lakesley family knew how many pieces were inside. Others could not have known of this. Grandmaster Rong Yun's expression remained unperturbed. Then, let's regard this as you having submitted 7 pieces. These words, when heard, sounded uncomfortable. What do you mean by just regard as? It was obviously 7. Now, it seemed as if she had been given and took huge advantages. Li Yaoyao became so depressed that she nearly vomited out blood. She just knew that running into this accursed little divine dragon, nothing good ever happened. However, because she knew Grandmaster Rong Yun liked the little divine dragon, therefore, the corner of Li Yaoyao's mouth squeezed out a smile. Since she already received his words, the Jade Lake's fairy naturally would not foolishly argue over this. Her eyes carried a smile, and with a nod, she stepped down. Since Grandmaster had said she submitted 7 pieces, then now, it's time to see what Su Luo, this slut, has. If she could not submit 7 pieces, even if her little spirit pet was clever, so what? Wasn't it still a loss? At this moment, everybody's gaze was concentrated on Su Luo's body. Yet, Su Luo's expression really was somewhat enigmatic. 10 minutes had passed. The little amethyst fish in her space finally started to spit out bubbles. Su Luo watched with rapt attention. It's coming out, coming out. Su Luo secretly encouraged the little amethyst fish in her heart, hoping that it could, at the most crucial point and by all means, strive for the purple-colored crystal stone. However, the matter that made her depressed still ended up happening. During this most critical moment, the little amethyst fish actually spat out a red-colored crystal stone. Su Luo was itching to pick it up on the spot and spank its bottom. This child was truly too disappointing. At the most crucial moment, it screwed up. Even if it was not a purple-colored crystal stone, shouldn't it at least be a blue-colored crystal stone? Chapter 719, Rong Yun's Bias, 6. As a result, Li Yaoxiang did not even mention the matter of searching for it. Who could have imagined that the little divine dragon had only swallowed one blue-colored crystal stone and that the purple-colored crystal stone still remained in his paw? Now, it just so happened to resolve Su Luo's worry. A cold smile streaked across Su Luo's heart. Didn't Li Yaoyao use every possible means to stop Beichening from delivering the purple crystal stone? Now, it could be considered that the Jade Lake's Li family's purple-colored crystal stone had actually helped her out greatly. Su Luo took out the brocade sack she had already prepared earlier. She took advantage of the moment when people were not paying attention to slip the purple-colored crystal stone into the brocade sack. Apothecary Long personally came down to take the brocade sack. Afterwards, he personally passed it into Grandmaster Rong Yun's hands. Apothecary Long retreated a step and mockingly cast Li Yaoxiang a glance. What evil idea this person had? Who wouldn't know? Who to learn from? Why must he learn from that family's little divine dragon? Thought of intercepting halfway? He was already at such an age and still not afraid of losing face. However, Apothecary Long had personally come down to receive it, so Li Yaoxiang did not have an opportunity to act. Seeing this, Li Yaoxiang hatefully glared at Apothecary Long and then turned his face away. However, he was not worried. In any case, Su Luo, that loathsome girl, could not bring out a purple-colored crystal stone. Grandmaster Rong Yun opened the brocade sack and lightly swept a glance. If you looked carefully, you would have noticed his eyebrows wrinkle slightly for a split second. He raised his head, his deep eyes shooting towards Su Luo. The meaning in its depths, others could not understood, but Su Luo clearly understood. Su Luo's eyes contained a smile. Her expression was unperturbed and at ease. She calmly welcomed Grandmaster Rong Yun's gaze that examined her. Even though her strength was lacking, she still had a lot of self-confidence. Grandmaster Rong Yun sized up Su Luo with a glance, then moved his gaze away. Crashed Grandmaster Rong Yun picked up the brocade sack and poured out the pile of crystal stones inside. Red, orange, yellow, green, cyan, blue, purple. Unexpectedly, it was 7 pieces and 7 colors. She was even able to find the most precious purple-colored crystal stone. Everybody stared in a daze at the pile of crystal stones on the table, so excited that they almost trembled. What was wrong with this world? Even this kind of insignificant daughter of a concubine from Su family could conveniently bring out a purple-colored crystal stone? This was absolutely impossible. Could it be that the Su family had another treasure storage? At this moment, in the minds of many people, a different thought was secretly born. At this moment, Emperor Jing was dumbfoundedly looking at that piece of purple-colored crystal stone. For a long time, he could not return to reality. He looked at that piece of purple-colored crystal stone, and then looked at Su Luo again. The words Nangong Luyun said before he left resurfaced in his mind. He said, "No matter what incredible things happen on Su Luo's body, you should not be too amazed." The decrepit Emperor Jing dropped back on the imperial throne. At this moment, he actually was slightly rejoicing that he had not gone to the Jade Lakesley family to conclude the marriage. This is wrong. That piece of purple-colored crystal stone. Li Yaoxiang's words hadn't finished, but the little divine dragon, who was already guarding by the side of the table, was then seen with his paws quick as lightning, grabbing that purple-colored crystal stone and stuffing it into his mouth. He even accompanied it with a gulp sound, as he swallowed the crystal stone into his stomach. As everyone knows, this move was called destroying the corpse and wiping out all traces. Originally, Li Aoqiong's words were too subtle and unclear. Nobody could understand it. However, matching it with the little divine dragons covering up action, that made it more obvious. Everybody all recalled the matter from before when the little divine dragon grabbed the crystal stones. As a result, everybody all nodded their heads, having clearly understood. That's right. How could Su Manor be able to bring out a purple-colored crystal stone? This purple crystal stone was clearly the one from the Jade Lakesley family. Li Aoqiong was so angry that his face became black. Great Master, that piece of purple-colored crystal stone clearly was the one from Jade Lakesley families. She cheated. Li Aoqiong pointed at Su Luo with a sinister and fierce gaze, wishing he could choke Su Luo to death. Su Luo's expression was calm like unperturbed water as she cast him a glance. Do you have evidence? Even if what you said was correct, if you do not have any evidence, then it would be of no use. Chapter 720 Rong Yun's Bias 7. Li Yaoxiang's complexion turned ashen. The evidence is inside that little dragon's stomach. Li Yaoxiang cupped his hands in respect towards Grandmaster Rong Yun. Great Master, I have a way to make the little dragon vomit out the crystal stone in its stomach. Please allow it, Great Master. Su Luo's eyes had a smile, and she shot a mocking glance at Li Yaoxiang. He dared to ask permission to act against the little divine dragon from Grandmaster Rong Yun? Had the brain of the second master of the Jade Lakesley family been kicked by a donkey? Sure enough, Grandmaster Rong Yun's indifferent complexion suddenly sank. He coldly snorted. Want to make the little dragon vomit? Only if you will let this apothecary cut open your stomach first. Says everyone sucked in a breath of cold air and immediately looked at each other in dismay. At the same time, they all looked at Li Yaoxiang with sympathy and pity. This idiot, Grandmaster Rong Yun, already showed that he favored that little dragon, yet you would jump up and down to complain like this? Wasn't this creating problems for yourself? Li Yaoxiang was extremely angered by Grandmaster Rong Yun's biased treatment. His complexion was indeterminate, going from clear to overcast. The fists at his side were tightly clenched. Great Master, this is not fair. Li Yaoxiang, seeing his second uncle eating a loss this way, also stood out, unwilling to accept this. Grandmaster Rong Yun's forehead wrinkled slightly. He hadn't even spoken before Apothecary Long had already rudely glared at Li Yaoqiang. Are you the one accepting a disciple, or is it my master who is accepting disciples? Is there a place for your opinion? Scram to the side. These words did not have any mercy. However, they were truly reasonable. It was Grandmaster Rong Yun who was accepting disciples. Whoever he wanted to accept, then he would accept. Whatever rules he wanted to set, then he would set them. Why would he need others' nonsense opinions? Grandmaster Rong Yun nodded his head slightly. Those who feel this is unfair, you can withdraw. Once these words were out, the Jade Lakesley family members looked at each other in dismay and collectively became silent. They had already strived for many years to get Grandmaster Rong Yun to accept Li Yao as a disciple. In their eyes, victory was in sight. How could they just voluntarily give up? At this moment, Li Yao's complexion was also very ugly. Although she did her utmost to maintain a gentle, magnanimous expression, but her heart was brimming with anger and inevitably would be displayed on her face. As a result, now, it seemed her smile was just that stiff, like a statue. Li Yao bit her back teeth and squeezed out a stiff smile. Naturally, what Great Master said is correct. Then, congratulations to Miss Su for passing the first round. Su Luo naturally returned it courteously, her eyes having a cynical smiling expression. Didn't Miss Li also pass? The same congratulations to you. Miss Li? Being praised by others for a long time as the Jade Lake's fairy, suddenly hearing herself being addressed as Miss Li made her feel like dirt. Li Yao's heart increasingly loathed Su Luo even more. Only, her face retained its gentle and shallow smile. Grandmaster Rong Yun beckoned with his hand. Then the little divine dragon skillfully jumped into his arms. Grandmaster Rong Yun unhurriedly hung the brocade sack on the little divine dragon's neck and lightly said, "Take it to go play with it." Grandmaster Rong Yun's pampering indulgence towards the little divine dragon. Everyone was numb from seeing it. As a result, their reaction was not as big as before. Apothecary Long took a glance at Grandmaster Rong Yun, the latter nodding his head. Apothecary Long understood and raised his voice. The first round, Li Yaoyao submitted 7 crystal stones of 7 colors. Su Luo submitted 7 crystal stones of 7 colors. As a result, both sides are tied. If this kind of result was placed a day before, then how unimaginable would it have been? Even the Jade Lakesley family had not foreseen this in the end. What kind of dramatic scene would happen? After 10 days, the second round begins. Grandmaster Rong Yun stood up. His wide robe swiped perpendicular to the ground. His expression had a type of supremacy that did not allow anyone to question him. Everyone respectfully saw off Grandmaster Rong Yun. Li Yaoyao thought for a moment, and then still quickly chased after Grandmaster Rong Yun. Afterwards, she followed closely behind him. Chapter 721 Rong Yun's Bias 8. Su Luo stepped out of the throne room. The first person she saw was Bai Qining. This child's head of hair was a chaotic mess. He looked messy and cut a very sorry figure, his complexion seeming travel-worn and exhausted. However, his eyes were deep and alive. With both hands crossed over his chest, he leaned on the red pillar flamboyantly, with deep eyes that contained a smile as he looked at Su Luo. Su Luo smilingly patted his shoulders. "You arrived too late, otherwise you would have seen a good play. Truly regretful." Bai Qining grasped that purple-colored crystal stone in his hands tightly and placed it behind his back. His expression had a touch of lament. "That is truly regretful." From an angle that Su Luo could not see, a changed expression flashed through his eyes. These few days, he had hurried day and night to finally make a round trip between Beichen Palace and the Eastern Ling capital. Because he was afraid of ambushes set up by the Jade Lakesley family, he had notified Lan Xian and Anya Ming. He asked them to impersonate him and lure away the opponent's experts. Afterwards, he quickly rushed to the Imperial Palace. Originally, he wanted to directly go in, but instead, he stealthily flew to the roof to watch. He had calculated everything, only he could never have calculated that Luo girl would actually win the first round by relying on herself. This time, in the end, he still was of no help. Su Manor. The news of Su Luo's draw with the Jade Lakes Fairy in the first round was passed around very quickly. Su Zian, who originally was paying an abnormal amount of attention to this, naturally knew the results immediately. The second he knew of this news, he immediately sank into ecstasy. He truly never expected that that loathsome girl would actually be this hard-working. She was able to pass, standing side by side with the Jade Lakes Fairy. Even if it was just luck. So what? Luck was also a part of one's strength. Su Zian was currently waiting for Su Luo to return and wanted to wantonly praise her. He wanted to make up for the lack of father-daughter feelings for these many years. Su Zian couldn't help but secretly repent. These years, he truly did not treat Su Luo well. Among his children, he often neglected Su Luo, to the extent that their father-daughter relationship became estranged. However, it didn't matter. From now on, he would treat that girl as a pearl in his palm. Concentrating all his doting on her, he believed at that time, their father-daughter relationship would advance by leaps and bounds. Just when Su Zian became more and more excited and happy from these thoughts, suddenly, a letter flew in from the window. At this moment, Su Zian had his hands on the table. The dagger with the letter attached inserted perfectly in the crack between his fingers. How strong was this expert who threw the dagger, and how accurate was his strength of control over the dagger? It must be said that Su Zian was a 5th-rank expert. Su Zian looked at that letter, his eyes flashing with astonishment. He rushed out to chase after this person and inspected all around. He discovered that the opponent had already disappeared. That's right. If someone capable of secretly throwing the dagger into the crack between Su Xian's fingers, it meant his strength was much greater than Su Xian's. Then, how could he be caught by Su Xian? Even if Su Xian could catch up, then what could he actually do? When he understood this, Su Xian resolutely returned to the Great Hall. He looked at the letter that appeared so mysteriously, his eyes squinting dangerously. He had a very bad premonition. The night was pitch black as ink. Su Xian shut himself in his study. The doors and windows were closed tightly. The entire room was covered all around in pitch-black darkness. Su Xian's complexion was hard to distinguish in the gloomy darkness. None could see it clearly. At this moment, he held the letter that was delivered this afternoon. It was very clear that the wax seal on top of it had already been broken. Su Xian opened the letter and very carefully looked at it once more. In the end, he angrily threw the letter on the table. The words written on it was very clear. Su Luo was not his, Su Xian's daughter. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.